BBC WM.
95.6.
Teachers, if you don't like it, get out of it.
Pensioners who can't do anything to boost her income.
Abduction? As far as I'm aware, she actually went willingly.
Iain Lee, Saturdays.
9 till 12. BBC WM.
95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, filling in for Nick Conrad. How long does it take to get married, for goodness sakes? I'm here between 9 and 12, and as always, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm keen to get your input. Lots of things we're talking about this morning. When was the last time you cried? How do I teach my 3.5-year-old son to whistle? It's easy to whistle. How do you communicate that to a 3.5-year-old boy? We'll also be talking about how important is it for kids to have dads. But the big talking point today, and we couldn't avoid it, could we, is about the alleged nail bomb attack in Tipton. I guess the question this morning is, how do we calm things down? The phone number is 08453 00 9956. How do we calm things down?
Call 08453 00 9956.
Iain Lee on BBC WM.
95.6.
I mean, it's been the big story from yesterday afternoon, and it's still big news this morning. I want your reaction to the explosion that went off outside a mosque in Tipton yesterday. You couldn't have failed to miss it. It's been on the TV, it's been on the radio. The attack could have maimed hundreds of people, were it not for the fact that Friday prayers have been put back 1 hour because of Ramadan. Well, police are investigating whether there's a link between the explosion and a bomb being left outside another mosque in Walsall. But there are those two attacks. There have also been the graffiti attacks on mosques, one in Redditch, one in Cradley Heath, all in the last month. So I guess this is kind of a wake-up call for everyone in the West Midlands. The thing is, we don't want this here, do we? Do we? How do we stop these kinds of attacks? How do we calm things down? Well, if you've got an opinion on this, and I'm sure most of you listening will this morning, 08453 00 9956. You can send me a text, 81333. Start your text WM. Or we can cross live now to our reporter, Steve Herman, who's outside the Central Jamia Mosque in Tipton. Steve, what's the mood like there this morning?
Good morning. Well, it's a beautiful summer's morning here in Tipton. I'm on the junction of Victoria Road with Mayfair Gardens and Park Lane East to my left. It's closed off part of Victoria Road and Mayfair Gardens as the police continuing to investigate. Like I said, beautiful summer's morning, but you can forgive, the mood is still very much one of disbelief, really. Many people telling me still this morning that they never would have thought this sort of thing would have happened in Tipton. The blast happened at 6 minutes past 1 yesterday afternoon, so it's still very fresh in people's minds. And now it's still very much a hive of activity. There's not many members of the public around. They're perhaps preferring to stay in their homes, but there is plenty of police around here, Iain.
Is the mosque still sealed off, or are people allowed to go back in there yet?
Yes, it's sealed off here. It's very difficult to get very close to the scene still, given the investigations. We were told yesterday that police could well be there for the next couple of days carrying on their investigations. Right now, at the moment, I can see at least a dozen police officers blocking off the road. We've got the blue and white police tape blocking off Victoria Road in front of me. I can see 2 police cars, 2 police vans. There's even in the last couple of minutes a technical rescue van from West Midlands Fire Service has arrived, and also in the distance down Victoria Road, just before the railway bridge on the Disused railway line where the explosion was heard, I can see forensic teams as well in their white overalls, their white face masks, gloves. Obviously, that's going to be part of their investigation as well this morning, West Midlands Police.
And Steve, from where you are, can you see any evidence of the bomb? Can you see broken glass? There was scattered over a large area, several nails scattered over a large area. Can you see anything?
There's no evidence of the nails and debris which we were told of yesterday. That was closer to the scene. I mean, we're a few hundred yards away from the mosque on Binfield Street. It's literally a no-go zone around here. All I can see at the moment is the Victoria Road surgery in the distance. Then you've got the trees, and backing off to that, that's where the disused railway line is. So the mosque is somewhere over at the back of the trees there. I can see a forensics tent which has been set up in the car park there, but no sign of the nail and debris over here. But in the last hour on BBC WM, we did speak to Zahir Hussain, who heard the explosion yesterday on Park Lane East. It actually woke him up. He was asleep, he said, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and he said the explosion shook his house.
And the thing that surprised me yesterday, watching this on the TV and listening to it on BBC WM, was that the residents, they seemed very calm about this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, a few people obviously saying they're scared, which you can understand. But at the same time, like you said, I mean, I spoke to a lovely gentleman just before 7 o'clock last night, live on BBC WM, who was saying, you know, we are calm, which is what the mosque leaders said. We spoke to the imam yesterday, again live on BBC WM, and he appealed for calm. He doesn't want people to get stressed by this. And the guy I spoke to yesterday, the member of the public, he took that message on board, and he said, look, everybody's out on the street here, a beautiful summer's evening, he was telling me, and he said it's brought the community together, it's made everybody stronger. And just a few minutes ago as well, just before you came to me live on air, spoke very briefly to one man wearing his West Bromwich Albion shirt here in Tipton, and he told me, he said, look, we're all together in this, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever, everybody is together here in Tipton. It's a tight-knit community, and this, you know, while they're shocked this has happened here, they weren't expecting it, you know, it will not put them off, it will not deter the spirit here in Tipton.
Steve Herman, thank you very much. Steve's going to be there for the rest of the morning, and we'll be going back to him later on in the day. Well, how do we calm things down? That's the question, isn't it? No one wants this. No, this is doing nobody any good. What can we do? You've probably got an opinion on this. 08453 009956. I'm joined this morning by Dr. Chris Allen from the University of Birmingham and author of the book Islamophobia. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thank you very much for coming in. These attacks seemingly on the rise. The timing, I think, of yesterday's attack is significant. Just the same day as drummer Lee Rigby's funeral. The mood is there's a tension, isn't there? Yeah. I think.
Well, I think that what we've seen from research is that whenever we have an incident where there's Muslims been involved who claim to be speaking in the name of Islam or acting on behalf of all Muslims, even though they don't, what we see is a kind of sharp rise of anti-Muslim incidents, you know, for about 2 weeks. I think what we're seeing here is a kind of ongoing sort of situation. I think there's obviously some who are looking to exploit this, some that are trying to continue this actual backlash against Muslims in a way of destabilising communities, about increasing fear, about increasing anxiety. And I think what we're seeing now is the best thing that we can see. In Tipton, it seems that there's a sense of calm there, that obviously that fear and anxiety is going to rise. But on the whole, people are actually very, very calm. And I think that is the worst message that the extremists would want. Extremists of any side actually want a reaction. They want anger. They want the communities to be torn apart. And I think that what's going on in Tipton is absolutely fantastic.
The dignity that has been displayed, I think, this is a residential street. You know, you'd have a right to be angry if a bomb went off in your street. The dignity that's been displayed by the residents, by people who use the mosque, by people of all colours. I think that's been incredible, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
Well, I was on WM yesterday evening, and Steve on News was just saying about the kind of response from the community, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I think there was this kind of sense of, well, you know, actually, rather than divide a community, let's all stand together. Let's actually all, you know, distance ourselves from this and condemn this as much as possible. And I think it's a message that's been coming through for a while, is that those individuals on the extremes from within Muslim communities don't actually speak on behalf of Muslims. You know, and the extremists within, say, the far right with the English Defence League or something, they don't speak for people like myself, who's a white English British man. You know, so I think that, you know, this is really a great response, and I think that everybody in Tipton should be congratulated for that.
You were talking about the press conference as well, which I missed yesterday, where a cleric gave again, another rational, calm speech.
Yeah, absolutely. Ghulam Rasool spoke after the police, and I thought that the response from both the police and also from the mosque as well was absolutely superb. I thought it was pitched very well. It was about, this is about calm, allowing the police to continue with their job. And I think that really is what we need to do, is allow the police to get on with it.
Chris, do stick around, because we're going to get a lot of phone calls on this. I can see the phone lines going already. 08453 009956. I'm keen to speak to both sides of this. How do we calm things down? Right. We'll speak to you after we get a little bit of travel. Morning, this is Iain Lee, sitting in for Nick Conrad. He's away for another couple of weeks. He's enjoying his newly married life, so congratulations to Nick. This morning, I want your reaction to the explosion that went off outside the mosque in Tipton yesterday. Could have maimed hundreds of people, were it not for the fact that Friday prayers had been put back an hour because of Ramadan. Well, police are investigating whether there's a link between the explosion and a bomb being left outside another mosque. So 2 bombs, as well as graffiti attacks on mosques in Redditch and Cradley Heath, all in the last month. Well, how do we calm things down? What do we do to just take this tension out of the air a little bit? 08453 009956 is the phone number. You can text me as well, 81333. Start your text WM. Also joined by Dr. Chris Allen, who wrote the book Islamophobia. Chris, thank you for coming in. Let's take a few calls. We've got Malcolm in Bourneville. Morning, Malcolm.
Morning, Ian.
Malcolm, what do we do to calm things down?
Well, to me, first of all, you got to tell them to like they've been saying, keep calm until they find out who has done it.
Right.
Because to me, it's like that chap who was on just before. He more or less said it all, really, what I was going to say. Because let's face it, the fanatics of whether it's whether Christian fanatics, Muslim fanatics, or whatever, they will do anything maybe to try and stir it up. And so really, we don't know who has done it. So it could have been because we know how the Taliban are averse to killing their own people just to make a point. And so we don't know if fanatics of that have started doing this to try and stir it up here to put the blame on all of us to get the tensions going and cause problems.
Malcolm,
what I'm trying to say?
I think I see what you're trying to say, and I'm just going to clarify, make sure I've not got it wrong.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that maybe a Muslim extremist group tried to blow up a Muslim mosque?
Could be, yeah. That's what I say. We've got to wait and let the police find out who they think has done it.
What would be the benefit?
Accusations start flying around.
What would be the benefit of that?
Well, then we know then that they're not. We're not.
Not the benefit of waiting. Obviously, that we have to wait for a full investigation to find out what's going on. What would be the benefit of Muslim extremists trying to blow up their own place of worship?
Because it would stir up the ordinary people into much more rioting and so on, and there might be a full-scale riot between the Christians and the Muslims, which is what they're trying to do in the Western world, aren't they? You see, they're trying to take over. They won't say so. The fanatics are trying to take over the Western world, aren't they?
Are they?
Yes, they are.
In what way take over?
Take over, trying to make the world Islamic.
I don't... Well, listen, I'm not an expert on this. Dr. Chris Allen, are they trying to take over and make the world...
That's what they want to do.
Well, let's ask the doctor. Are they trying to take over the world and make us all Islamic? Is that the plan?
I think that the first thing to say is that the premise that Malcolm was suggesting was actually explored in Chris Morris's film Four Lions, which obviously was a black comedy, and this idea that actually it would be a good idea for Muslims to actually blow themselves up because that would actually get a good reaction. I think that, quite frankly, it's almost a ridiculous premise that is. And I think that what Malcolm was saying about not speculating and actually allowing the police to do the investigation is the actual key to that. I think that one of the issues that we have here is that there is this kind of belief that Muslims are actually, or Islam is trying to take over the West. I think we saw that in Norway a few years ago when Anders Breivik, he suggested that Europe was being Islamified, and that actually by doing what he did would actually be a prompt that people would wake up. Obviously, what Breivik did in Norway wasn't a wake-up call. It was just a wake-up call to say this is an idiot who's on the extremes, who's doing something, did hideous crimes. I think what we have to do is we have to step back from this, and we really have to look at this seriously. And what we've seen from the Muslims in Tipton and Muslims in Birmingham and elsewhere across the West Midlands is that there's been a very, very British response. There's been no reaction. There's not been an overreaction. There's not been a response where actually this is about taking sides. This is about people coming together. And I think that actually sometimes it's very easy to look at these kind of conspiracy theories that Muslims want to take over the country or the West or the world or wherever. And actually, when we look at the reality, what we've seen in Tipton is a very, very British response. And I don't think that would be different whether that was Muslims or non-Muslims. It's actually about being in Britain and actually living in the way in which British people live.
Malcolm, you know that most Muslims would be against a lot of the kind of activity we've seen recently.
What I'm trying to say is a lot of us in this country can only go by what we hear in the media and see on the television. And we have heard that the Taliban and people like that and the Al-Qaeda and all the rest of it, that's what they would like to do if they possibly could.
Malcolm, what do we do to calm things down then? Let's try and come up with some practical suggestions of how we can ease this tension and stop anyone planting bombs or killing people.
Well, first of all, you've got to find out who's behind it all first, and then take it from there. You can't just sort of just suddenly say, you know, oh, they're dropping bombs by these mosques. It must be the English Defence League or the Christians or whatever trying to get back for killing one of our veterans and one of our soldiers. You know, you can't just start saying that because they might be doing that. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I don't think anyone, particularly here at BBC, I don't think anyone has said, oh, it's the EDL or it's the Christian far right. I think we've kind of been, from the reporting I've been listening to over the last day, I think we kind of have been taking a step back and not pointing the finger at anyone. But it's very unlikely they'd be doing it to themselves, isn't it?
No, well, it should. Yeah, of course. Well, we don't know because...
We don't know, but... It's unlikely.
They have done it in Afghanistan. Well, that's what they do. They go and blow themselves up and blow other people up with it. So that's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Malcolm, thank you very much. 08453 009956. To a certain extent, Chris, Malcolm is right that we shouldn't be, and I don't think we have at BBC WM, but we shouldn't be pointing the finger at specific groups until we know more. But that's the same with any kind of inquiry and investigation, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I said this right at the start. It's about giving the police space and time to actually do their job. And I think that, you know, what we've seen in Birmingham in particular over the last few years is that in issues of counter-terrorism, actually West Midlands Police has done a fantastic job. You know, they've made a number of arrests, they've made a number of prosecutions, and actually gone through to successful convictions as well. So I think West Midlands Police are doing an absolutely fantastic job in the kind of broader field of counter-terrorism and terrorism. And I think that's why we shouldn't try and speculate. You know, I think that what we can see is in Redditch, say for example, obviously the mosque was daubed with graffiti. There was swastikas, there was the EDL, there was KKK, and also National Front actually put on in the graffiti.
Wow. Okay.
But what we have to realise is that may not necessarily be people who are affiliated with those groups. It's actually there as a provocation. You know, so somebody who wants to provoke a response will actually put something like that because it's about dividing communities. It's about destabilising those sensitivities.
I've not seen an NF daubed on a wall in white paint since about 1979. Wow, retro racism. Wow. Ivan's in Willenhall. Morning, Ivan.
Hiya. I initially found in to say more or less what Chris has just said. It's a very British thing to do what they've done in Tipton. But the best thing to do now is to stop going on about it. You know, all this media coverage, everybody's talking about it. In my opinion, enough's been said. Just leave it to the police now to sort it out. But the more you keep talking about it and saying things are great, whoever's done it and whoever did do it, did it to cause trouble, I think we'll have a go at something else. But if you give them all this cover, you know, it's just going to get them going.
But Ivan, if we give them all this coverage, but we highlight the facts that from both sides of the community there's been a very mature response, that there aren't Muslim teenage boys roaming around the streets at night with flaming torches, if we kind of shine light on this, doesn't that take away some of the power of the, in inverted commas, terrorists who did this?
But how much light do you want to shine? Like say, I know it only happened yesterday.
Yeah.
But the national media has been on about it.
A suspected bomb went off in a mosque. That's quite a big story. It takes a little bit longer than, 15 hours for that to calm down, doesn't it?
Well, Yeah, but you're keeping it going by talking about it. The best thing that's happened is the response in Tipton. There's been no response. You know, but if you keep going on about it, it's going to get somebody going off somewhere. And I agree with Malcolm. I think it's quite possible that it was some extreme Muslims. And bear in mind, no one was hurt. And the meeting in the church was an hour late or an hour early. That's why it was missed.
Chris, you want to come in? Hang on a second, Ivan. Chris wants to work. Chris.
Yeah, I think one of the things is what we have to realise is that had a bomb gone off anywhere, there would have been more than 24 hours coverage, in the media. And so I think that actually taking away, if we exclude the fact for the moment that this was a bomb at the back of a mosque, actually this would have carried on wherever this bomb would have gone off and whoever would have placed it. So media coverage would have carried on. If this would have been a bomb at the back of a church, for example, I'm sure that actually we wouldn't have people phoning up saying, let's not talk about this, because actually what I'm hearing is very similar to the debates that would have occurred had this have gone off at the back of a church, had it gone off at the back of a synagogue. It would have been this kind of implicit assumption that actually some sort of Muslim extremist group was behind this. I think that what we have to do is, listening to Ivan and Malcolm, actually there's this kind of suggestion that we should give the police space to actually sort of do their job, that actually there's been a very British response in terms of all communities in Tipton. But I kind of worry that what the driver for this is, that it's the suggestion that actually give the police space to do this, because in the end they'll find that this is Muslims who have actually done it. I would suggest that it's highly, highly unlikely, and I'm happy to actually come back on air and apologise if I've got it wrong. But I'm almost certain that actually, that this is going to be some individual who was acting on their own, who was actually trying to destabilise communities, and they may or may not have some sort of link with a far right organisation, or at least have some sort of sympathy. That would be my suggestion.
Ivan, 4 events, all within recent weeks, the 2 bombs and the graffiti attacks in Redditch and Cradley. Why do you think that some members of the community have got a problem with Muslims?
Well, I most certainly have, yeah, I'm 70 tomorrow.
Did you say you've got a problem?
Yeah, but listen, I've got friends who I cannot believe have gone down the road of being anti-Muslim or even anti-black. We weren't brought up like that. There weren't any in the country to get uptight about, And friends of mine, I just can't believe some of the things they say. There's no reason for it. I don't know where they're coming from.
What kind of things are they saying, Ivan? As long as, just mind your language. What kind of things are they saying about Muslims?
Well, racist things, joke. I've had to tell several friends to stop sending me jokey text. Well, they think they're jokes. I don't think they're vaguely funny,
But why have they said to you why they have got a problem with Muslims?
Well, they really don't know. You pick them up on it, and they'll come up with some silly excuse. I had to take my grandson to hospital last Sunday, and they were nearly all Asian, the nurses, the doctors, and they were fantastic. I have no problem at all, but lots of people just look for it for no reason whatsoever.
Ivan, thank you very much indeed. Well, you've written a book about, or called Islamophobia. Chris, why do people have a problem?
Well, I think it's an issue around, there's a lack of understanding around Muslims and around Islam. There is this kind of, it works on so many levels. There's the kind of international sort of perspective, and obviously we have to appreciate that for over a decade now, British forces have been in a kind of conflict situation in places such as Iraq and Afghanistan. And then, of course, we have Muslims here, and there's, increasingly Muslims are visible in society. You can go into the centre of Birmingham, you can go into the centre of most towns or cities in Britain now and see Muslims. And I think that there's this issue is that we forget that actually Muslims who live here are actually British and have been, the vast majority have been born here, second, third, fourth generation, very similar to, sort of a lot of the kind of people that came to Britain, in the kind of 50s, 60s and 70s, part of the mass migration. I think that people cling on to a nostalgia that actually things were much better in the past. It's very easy to scapegoat people who look different, who maybe are perceived to be different, even though, as we've seen in Tipton this morning, that, you know, the response from Muslims has been very, very British. And I think that what we really see there is that, you know, it's very much a kind of thing where we don't differentiate. So we use an example of something that goes on in Afghanistan, you know, what the Taliban may do, and actually then project that onto maybe that's potentially what somebody in Tipton may do. And I don't think we do that with any other community whatsoever. So I think that there's the kind of the local, the national, the international levels, and it becomes all mixed up in the way in which we understand it and the way in which we try to deal with it.
Let's go to Ranjit in Albury. Morning, Ranjit.
Morning, how you doing?
Yeah,
All right.
fine, thank you. Ranjit, is your mouth anywhere near your telephone?
It is, yeah, can you hear me?
It sounds like you're in a separate room.
I'm in a big room.
Oh,
Yeah,
mysterious.
I'm going to a small room. How you doing? All
Yeah,
right?
I'm fine, thank you, Ranjit. What's your take on what's been happening in the last 24 hours?
It's horrible. It's absolutely, you know, it's not a nice thing. I mean, I'm not a million miles away from there. I'm in Albury, yeah? But two wrongs will never, ever make a right. That's the one thing I'm going to say. And
What are the two wrongs?
whoever's bombed that mosque,
Yeah.
in retaliation, I mean, it's obviously got a connection to the funeral yesterday.
Yeah.
Of Lee Rigby.
People have made that assumption, yes.
Okay, no, it's pretty obvious. You know, he was a soldier going about his business.
I don't want to go too much into just
Okay.
because it's an open case at the moment, so we have to kind
It's
of
a
just
retaliation.
Right.
It's probably more than likely it's probably a retaliation. Somebody is maybe a lone person is running around trying to make a point. Yeah, I want to talk about Islamophobia.
Yeah.
I think the media's got a lot to do with it. A lot. Yeah, you had court cases where people were grooming children, and in the papers they said people of Muslim origin, of Pakistani origin. There's no need to say that in the paper. They were perverts, and that was what it was. And it was just a coincidence that they were Muslim. So in the papers, you don't need to do that, yeah? And then we adopt things, right, which are good about the Muslim religion, right? Yeah. People like Mo Farah, I think he's a Muslim, yeah? You go on about Aladdin. That's Aladdin. That's a Muslim thing. Right. But when we go to pantomime...
I suspect, Ranjit, that most people sitting at home watching Disney DVDs would not be aware they are watching a Muslim character on a flying carpet. The thing about... I don't want to go off too much on this...
What I'm saying is, the media portrays them as evil people, and not all of them are like that. There's very small... And I'm looking in it from the outside.
I don't know if they... what religion are you, Ranjit?
I'm a Sikh.
You're a Sikh, OK. Now, I don't know if the media does portray them as evil people. The thing that I heard... You talk about the child grooming. The thing I heard more than that they were Muslims was the fact that they were Pakistani and Kashmiri. That was what stood out to me.
Yeah, but, Stuart Hall, he was a distinguished English gentleman. Nobody mentioned that, did they? That teacher that ran off with the children, the child to France, nobody mentioned that he was English. So there's no need to mention where they're from, all right? And then what happens, someone like me, right, with young children, I would be fearful of these people, but I know a lot of them, and a lot of them do disagree with
of course they do. Ranjit raises a good point, I think, and I've heard this point discussed before about, well, why do we label people Muslim terrorists? We don't call people Christian terrorists, and why the child grooming, why did we have to mention they're Muslim and Pakistani? I don't know the answer to this one. Chris?
Yeah. Well, I think Ranjit makes some interesting points, and I think that there is an issue about when things go into the kind of public spaces and whether that's come through the kind of politicians or whether that's come through the media. And I think that what happens is it's not necessarily the kind of sensationalist reporting of all media. It's the sensationalist reporting of some sectors of the media, and I think that there are a couple of newspapers in particular where you could look at some of the coverage around issues around Islam and Muslims where you would actually kind of suggest or question the extent to which the extent to which they are actually kind of exploiting an issue, to make a particular point there. I think what we've seen particularly with the grooming cases was that actually the reporting has been actually quite balanced, and you were right in saying there was an issue around ethnicity and about the kind of cultural sort of practices within particular ethnic groups. I think that then what happens is that some latch onto that, and then we'll talk about this being kind of inherent within Islam, that that actually the teachings of Islam allow for this sort of practice. And then we get into this sort of thing about how they come here and they do this to our women because our values allow this. And it's very much about setting this kind of us and them up. Yeah. And so I think that actually, you know, when you look at the vast majority of media, it's actually very balanced. It's one or two within that, or one or two aspects within that, and one or two politicians and commentators who will actually have a particular viewpoint around Muslims and Islam that will then latch onto that and exploit that for their own gain.
Ranjit, again, leave Rigby to one side because we can't really discuss it as it is an open case. But if someone commits an act like the bombs in London of a few years ago and says they are doing it in the name of Islam and they are doing this, you know, in the name of Allah, then surely we can safely label them Muslim extremists or Muslim terrorists. While they don't represent all of Islam, they represent a very, very tiny minority, a percentage of Islam. If they say they're doing it in the name of Islam, then we can call them that, can't we?
Yeah, OK, but what I'm saying is, like your other guests said, yeah, people want to sell newspapers.
Yeah.
Now, as a Sikh, yeah, our religion started as a rebellion to Islam because, you know, in Punjab, the Muslims came over from the west, right? Because they couldn't go further west because of the Richard the Lionheart's crusade, so they went east, right? And they were forcing people to become Muslims, yeah? And the Sikh religion came out of that, right? Because we didn't want to be forced converted into Islam, yeah? So we've had a running with Islam, you know, from day one, the birth of our religion. But as somebody independent, right, I feel that the media does make them look very negative. And, you know, blowing buses up or blowing a mosque up or killing anybody, it's totally wrong. There is no religion in the world that says
No,
that.
there isn't. Of course there isn't. But let me just play devil's advocate for a second. If they are saying it, they are doing it in the name of Islam, we have to... The media... the media has to flag that up, don't they? And that is a significant part of the attacks.
Yes, because that's what they're saying, yeah. But, you know, in big writing, we put Islamic terrorists have said this, yeah. In little writing, we say most of the Muslims have condemned it. That's what I feel. I don't feel it's balanced.
OK,
you know?
Ranjit, we have to move in there. Thank you very much. We're joined now by Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation. Good morning, Mohammed.
Good morning.
Very quickly, for those who are unaware, what exactly is the Ramadan Foundation?
We're a national British organisation that is working to build better understanding between Britain's diverse communities.
Well, maybe you can help answer this question we're asking this morning. Simply, how do we calm things down, Mohammed?
Well, we calm things down by coming together, holding hands, irrespective of our religion or ethnicity, and rejecting violence and terrorism. You know, in the same way in which we rejected terrorism after the brutal and barbaric murder of Lee Rigby, the country came together, and we'll come together after the incident, like terrorist incident yesterday in Tipton.
Sorry to interrupt. We've had several callers this morning and several yesterday on BBC WM suggesting that maybe it's not unlikely that this attack was done by Muslims themselves just to stir up a bit of hatred. How do you react to that?
Well, I mean, it's too early to speculate, and obviously we should allow the police to complete their inquiries. But we've seen an 8-fold increase in physical attacks against mosques, documented by independent sources, i.e. the police, the Home Office, and the Association of Chief Police Officers. You know, I don't really support or understand why people are saying that. And actually, rather than putting their energy in putting together those text messages or finding excuses why this is happening, we should be condemning it without reservation.
Chris, do you want to say something?
Yeah. I think that the issue of mosques is a really interesting one, because since Woolwich we've seen what we've seen is more than 20 actually be reported in terms of attacks on mosques. We've seen in places such as Braintree and Essex that people have gone in there actually brandishing knives in trying to actually attack Muslims while they're praying. But I think that what we've got in the Midlands as well is we've got a very interesting situation, because mosques have been quite problematic for a number of years. And I was just thinking, when Ranjit said he was from Oldbury, is it just along from Albury in 2009, a building that was going to be taken over as an Islamic centre was actually burnt to the ground on the day it was handed over by Sandal Council. That was in Langley. In Cradley Heath, the mosque has been attacked twice with fire bombs, and this was in around 2008, 2009. One was on Boxing Day. I think also we have to talk about the elephant in the room as well. You know, in the Black Country, not far from Tipton, we also had the Dudley, as it's been described, super mosque, and this has been something which has been a proposed mosque for over, I think it's about 14 years now. It's been ongoing. There's still no actual planning permission for that mosque or anything built, but it's caused huge amounts of tensions. And if you look at the political situation up there, you've seen far-right groups marching on a number of occasions. One of the biggest marches of the EDL was against the Dudley Super Mosque. You've had people getting into the kind of local council. Same in Sandwell as well. I think there's an uneasiness around mosques in the Midlands in particular.
Mohammed, why do you think there is that uneasiness around mosques?
I think that, as Muslims, we are responsible for ourselves and we've got to live in a peaceful way. But the idea that fascist and extremist, far-right extremists can march in the streets against the mosques that are being built, and that somehow that's a legitimate reason. The people who say that hide behind a facade, which is, a fear element. And as Muslims, we've got to reach out to members of wider society, explain what our faith is, explain what we say about Islam, about peace, and living in peaceful coexistence.
You say you have to reach out and explain. It could be possible to allege, put forward the allegation that there are some members of certain communities that don't want to integrate, that don't want to become part of the bigger society.
There are, for example, white families that move out when Asian families or Muslim families move into communities. So, I think this quite simplistic, approach that you're questioning. Obviously, you're just questioning because you're a presenter. But I think the important thing is, if we had seen the prayers yesterday at that mosque at 1 o'clock, you would have seen 300 to 400 people praying in that mosque. And because the prayers were moved back forward an hour, thankfully, nobody was injured.
Well, this is, I think, where the accusation from some of the listeners to BBC WM comes from, that it could have been done by Muslims themselves. It was either done by an idiot who couldn't check the timetable properly, or it was done by someone who had inside information. Now, I'm personally not suggesting that, but that's where this accusation has come from, that it was that a Muslim would have known there wasn't going to be a prayer session at 1 o'clock, so they put the bomb there for 1 o'clock so that no one would get hurt.
I think what has happened, obviously, Ramadan has started, and during Ramadan, quite a number of mosques around the country have decided to push their Friday prayers an hour forward. And obviously, that varies from mosque to mosque. An attack against a mosque is not just an attack against Muslims, it's an attack against all of us. In the same way, the attack against and the killing of Lee Rigby is an attack against us all. We've got to unite and we've got to come together, and we can't allow any justification for terrorism from any section of our society. And if it is proven that it's members of the Muslim community, then we will give a strong reaction, and we expect the rest of society to give a strong reaction if it's proven that it's from far-right extremism.
We often hear the accusation, Mohammed, when something happens by, in inverted commas, Muslim terrorists, that members of the clear-thinking Muslim community don't come out quick enough to denounce these atrocious attacks. How do you react to that?
Well, actually, I would disagree with you. I mean, maybe that would have been the case in July the 7th, 8 years ago. But actually, after the brutal murder of Lee Rigby, you saw Muslim organisation after Muslim organisation on the airwaves talking to ministers and doing a lot of work. I did over 180 interviews during that period. So actually, I don't think that applies now when we see terrorist attacks, when we see brutal murders as we saw of Lee Rigby. You see a very strong, collective, united Muslim reaction from various parts of the country, and I think that is something that we can celebrate and be proud of.
Mohammed, we're in Ramadan now, aren't we?
We are indeed, yeah.
Am I right? Am I right in thinking you're not even allowed to drink during Ramadan in the day?
I'm not. No.
It's going to be 30 degrees today, man. You can't even have a sip of water.
No.
How are you going to survive?
Well, you know what? I think science has proven this as well. When you are fasting, God gives you the strength to see the day through. When we started in the morning, people were saying, God, I don't know how we're going to cope. And then you ask the same people, how was your day? And they say, yeah, it was fine. It was fine. So
Okay.
you know what? We'll get through this.
Are you allowed to sit in a paddling pool?
No, I'm probably going to go to bed because I've been up since 5 doing interviews. So.
Mohammed Shafiq, thank you very much. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Science has proved that God gives you the strength, so there's something there. Well, listen, what do you think? How do we calm things down? And Mohammed is right. I was playing it's like devil's advocate there. You do constantly see, when there's a recent attack, you do constantly see members of the Muslim community coming out and denouncing them. Do give me a call. 08453 009956. You can text me 81333. Start your text WM. This is Iain Lee sitting in for Nick Conrad on BBC WM 95.6. Doreen, Simi, Matt will come to you after this. Morning, this is Iain Lee sitting in for Nick Conrad here between 9 and 12. You can give us a call this morning. We're asking about the recent events in Tipton, or yesterday's events in Tipton, and other recent attacks on mosques. How do we calm things down? No one wants bombs going off in their village or their town or their street. No one does. No one wants to see people die. So what do we do to calm things down? 08453 009956. In a minute we'll be speaking to a local councillor from Tipton. But before that, let's go to Simi in Sutton Coldfield. Morning, Simi.
Morning. Sorry, my voice is a little bit gone there.
Have you been shouting, Simi?
Yesterday was quite a vocal day, yes.
Why were you so vocal yesterday, Simi?
Just being at work and I suppose not sleeping too much.
Isn't it hard sleeping in this heat?
Well, I haven't been sleeping in the day, just been working, but also fasting because Ramadan, not drinking water, things like that.
You're fasting as well?
Yes.
I've got to ask, because it does fascinate me, how on earth are you coping without drinking water in the day? Or are you having a sneaky sip every now and then?
No, not at all. I think really we just look at the other community around the world, the Islamic community perhaps in Arabic countries or India, and they're fasting in 40 plus degrees.
It's a little bit warmer there.
And they possibly have to wear more clothes, etc. So, we're quite lucky here, I think, and we just look at it like that.
Simi, what are your views on what happened in Tipton yesterday?
Well, obviously it was it's an awful thing, but I do respect how everybody's remained very calm. I think that is the spirit of Muslims in general in a small community, and especially during the month of Ramadan, and on a day like Friday, which is also the holy day for Muslims. So I think that's just, Muslims who are trying to exemplify that we have to deal with things peacefully and show a different side from what's perhaps been shown in the media, which I think others have already touched upon previously. I think Ranjit was saying about how the media blows things out of proportion slightly. These buzzwords that are used, Islamophobia, terrorism, Al-Qaeda, all these kind of words which just perk people's ears up and make them assume things about Muslims who probably, they don't know much about Muslims. I think this behaviour shown yesterday exemplifies what true Islamic behaviour should be: to remain calm during a situation, wait for things to be investigated, not overreact. Like you said, there's not young boys in the streets causing riots or anything like that. And I think, we'd be quite proud of how they've reacted to this.
If someone, you talk about the buzzwords, and we'll speak to Chris in a second, whose book is titled one of those buzzwords. But surely we have to report. And listen, I'm quite new to doing this serious sort of stuff, so I don't know the answers. But if someone commits an atrocity, a murder or a bomb, and says they are doing it in the name of Allah or they are doing it in the name of Islam, then we have to report that, don't we? And they are, by definition, a Muslim extremist.
Yes, certainly. I understand where you're coming from. But say something like this. I mean, it's an act upon the religious building, the house of Allah, and on a religious day like a Friday, the most holy day in the week, also during the most holy month of Ramadan. So the thing is, it can also be considered as this is quite an extreme act as well. But when reporting such news, it's never... it's never that, you know, if it's something to do with the EDL, for example, that have that graffitied mosques or burnt down mosques or anything like that. It never gets labelled as terrorism, so to speak. And it is extremist behaviour, but it's the words that kind of get out, you know.
Well, yesterday is, I believe, being looked at as a terrorist attack.
Right, but it's just the wider view, the media on a whole.
And if it was, and let's just assume, let's not talk about this, but let's assume that there has been an attack done by an EDL member somewhere, it would be labelled as an EDL member has attacked, or a member of a far-right organisation has attacked. So it would be labelled like that, but
they don't jump onto the word like terrorism. And you've got to understand that I believe, you know, obviously this is an issue that came about in. After 9/11, the word terrorism became much more frequently used, and after the bombings in London as well, which obviously no normal Muslim would condone at all. But the use of the word terrorism, which harks back to that time and the fear of that time and the catastrophes of that time, I think in people's mind, they, you know, it's a preconceived kind of notion about, you know, these kind of people who are bombing buildings and this, that and the other. It's that word terrorism which isn't ever used so much for the far-right EDL movement.
But the definition of terrorism is systematic use of terror, often violent, especially as a means of coercion. So basically it's an act of violence to change people's opinion. So it's the correct word to use, isn't it?
Yeah, but then, you know, it's also the correct word to use in the other. If people are blowing up mosques or graffitiing mosques, I do believe there's nothing different.
That word has been used. Yes, I'm moving on just because I want to speak to a councillor a second. But Chris, you've got something to say.
Yeah, I think that all these terminologies are very sort of interesting. But I think that there are those legal definitions, and when the police make a designation, it's if something is terrorism or if it's hate crime, it's because that they are looking more towards a successful arrest. Conviction and prosecution, rather more so than actually what a perception would be. So what we see is things such as graffiti, smashing windows on mosques, sort of pulling Muslim women's hijab from their heads, verbally abusing someone. That is designated as a hate crime because the police are more likely and the crime prosecution service are more likely to be able to prosecute the perpetrator rather than if it was under the heading of terrorism. So we need to bear those sort of things in mind.
Chris, thank you very much. We're going to cross back to Tipton now. We can speak to a councillor in the town, Saida Amina Khatun. Good morning, Saida.
Good morning.
Saida, what's you've had a night to think about what happened. How are you feeling this morning? What's your reaction to what happened yesterday?
Well, the feeling this morning is, you know, whatever's happened yesterday, we need to sort of get together today and make sure that people still feel reassured and supported, really, and people overcome what has happened and make sure that the feelings are that you know there is support out there.
How did you find out about the bomb, Said, and what was your first reaction?
I actually work on the estate. I only found out when I had residents come down and tell me that this has happened. I didn't hear the bang myself, and then the police came and they did make the report that there's an incident has happened. They confirmed it, and they had to evacuate residents. And so I sort of got in, you know, I got involved because the residents were evacuated in a nearby community centre.
I don't suppose you ever expected a bomb to go off on your doorstep, did you?
Not really, no. I don't think anybody expects that at all.
And that must be quite concerning. If a place like Tipton isn't safe, or has been subject to an attack like this, that must be quite concerning for the whole community there.
It's very concerning and very serious. I mean, it just proves that this can happen, and it can happen on anybody's doorstep. So we do need to be vigilant and learn what we can from this, really, to prevent anything else happening in future.
And have you spoken to local residents? How are they feeling? Are they worried? Are they concerned?
Yeah, the local residents are worried. They're concerned that it is depression, shock. I mean, all the things that go with something like this. It has it has scared a lot of people, but the spirit is definitely saying, well, nobody's been hurt. So on that occasion, although it is serious, it's that the faith is there. Muslim community, they believe in faith, and they believe that, God will help them to pull together.
Do we know how damaged the mosque is?
I haven't got any extent of damage to the mosque yet. That hasn't been provided by the police as yet.
Saida, thank you very much. That's Saida Amina Khartoon, who is a councillor in Tipton. Well, it's the big news. Some people suggesting maybe we're talking about it a bit too much. I suspect, as my guest Chris said, if a bomb had gone off in the back of a church and we weren't talking about it the next day, Chris, people would say we weren't reporting it enough.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things we have to acknowledge is the fact that it's a big story in the West Midlands. This is Radio WM. That actually, we need to talk about these things. And actually, if for no other reason, what is really great about what came through last night and through today is the real calm response that's coming through. This idea that communities are getting on together, that actually working together. And I was just thinking that, in a very populist way, it's so British. It's almost as if it's keep calm and carry on. This is the message that's coming out, and I think that's a really strong message to put out there.
And by the way, I was watching the BBC One news. This was like third or fourth. If that plane hadn't blown up at Heathrow and that train hadn't derailed in France, this would be the lead story across the country. Yeah. It's a big story. Doreen's in Erdington. Morning, Doreen.
Morning. I'd like to reply to the chap that said you shouldn't say what the religion is. You shouldn't say they're Muslim. You've only got to listen to the names and you know who they are. They're mostly Mohammed, and you hear Patel or Kerr, and you can...
Well, Doreen, I don't think most of them are called Mohammed. That name does pop up.
No, I know, but there is a few. But you can tell by the name.
I think the core is not a Muslim name.
No. Ian Brady, they said he was an atheist, and they said his partner in crime was a Catholic.
Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. We've got off on a tangent. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. But isn't that a little unfair to judge people by their names?
No, but he said you shouldn't say they were Muslim.
No.
And I thought to myself, well, I've only got to see some names, and I know whether they're Sikh or by the.
What's it, Doreen? Give me a Sikh name.
Well, I can't just think about it, but if I hear one, I can relate it because I know a few, And don't forget, 90% of the Muslims, when they say they're British, they don't say I'm a British citizen. Right. They say I'm a British Muslim.
Where have you got those statistics from?
I've heard them on the radio.
Right, and you've collated that down.
Well, a lot of them say it. I've only ever heard one chap on your radio station say I'm a British citizen.
Yeah.
The rest, they say, what? You say, I'm a British Muslim.
And what's the problem with that?
Well, I don't say I'm a British Christian. I couldn't care. I don't. What have you got to say your religion after you're British for?
Well, maybe those people you've heard saying they're a British Muslim, they hold their religion more dearly than you hold your Christianity.
Perhaps they do. But then another thing, you sound about fasting. I know some Muslims, and my daughter and son-in-law said, aren't you fasting? Oh, he said, well, I can have something to eat today because I've given some money to the mosque. That's what his words.
Did Chris want to... Chris?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the reason why people don't say I'm British Christian is because if you look at statistics, less than 1 million people go to the Church of England on a normal Sunday. So, in a population of 60 million plus, actually, it's a very small number. The fact that Muslims describe themselves as British Muslim is surely that's a statement that they are British. Yeah? I think that before when Muslims used to say, well, we're Muslim, there was this thing, oh, you're not British. Now they're saying they're British Muslim. Well, now actually they have to be British citizens.
It's not a bad thing if they're saying they're British Muslims, is it, Doreen?
Well, you don't hear a Sikh say I'm a British Sikh.
Well, sometimes you do.
I'm a Hindu. You don't hear Hindus say I'm a British... They're foreign, whatever, and they don't say I'm a British
Doreen,
Sikh or a British...
Doreen, we on that gross, slightly misinformed generalisation, we have to end it there. They're not all foreign. Anyway, there's so much we could say. Right, we'll keep on talking about this and other bits and pieces in the next hour of the show. But coming up next, here's the news.
BBC WM
95.6.
Teachers, if you don't like it, get out of it.
Pensioners who can't do anything to boost her income.
Abduction, as far as I'm aware, she actually went willingly.
Iain Lee, Saturdays
9 till 12. BBC WM
95.6.
Good morning, this is Iain Lee, filling in for Nick Conrad, who's still off getting married. How long does it take, for goodness sakes? It's week 3. I'm here this week and next week, then Nick will be back, so don't panic. This morning we've been asking for your reaction to the explosion that went off outside a mosque in Tipton yesterday. It's the 4th attack of... we've had 2 bombs so far, 2 explosions, and 2 graffiti attacks on mosques in the last month or so. Well, how do we calm things down? You can give me a call on this, 08453 009956. You can send me a text, 81333. Start your text WM. I need some tips as well. I'm going to teach my 3.5-year-old boy how to whistle. I can whistle. I haven't got the language to communicate to him how to whistle. Can you teach me how to teach a 3-year-old boy how to whistle? And also, in this hour, in parts of the West Midlands, up to 70% of children are now raised in households without their fathers. Well, does every child need a dad? 08453 009956 81333 WM.
Call 08453 009956.
Iain Lee on BBC WM
95.6.
Also joined for the next 15 minutes or so by Dr. Chris Allen from the University of Birmingham, the author of Islamophobia. You've come in wearing a jacket, Chris. What are you doing? It's too hot.
I wanted to look slightly professional.
Look at me, I'm a mess, for goodness sakes. We'll let you go in a bit so you can go and enjoy the hot weather. Matt's in Solihull. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Ian.
Matt, what would you like to say?
You were catching up. You were a slow starter, but by the time Conrad comes back, you'll have passed him out.
Well, that's Matt, you're very, very kind. So
yes.
I am a slow starter. I like to build up gradually.
Yes.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, this thing we call life.
Yes. Anyway, we'll get down talking about religions. There was murder in Northern Ireland last night with religious groups, both Catholic and Protestant.
Yes, there was trouble with the marches, wasn't there?
Neither of them go to church at all, so I don't see why they're classed as religious people. I am not a religious people. I'm an aged person with a lot of memory of rows with religions. Religions cause rows all over the world.
Is it the religion, Matt? Is it the religions that cause the rows, or is it's the individuals with? Because Christianity, from what little I know about it, and Islam, from what little I know about it, and Sikhism, and all of the others, the basic tenet of these religions is love. Is be nice to people, look after people less fortunate than you. Then you might get looked after if you need it. But the basic thing is love. It's people misinterpreting.
Well, I've seen a religion in Ireland, and I can assure you there wasn't a lot of love in it. There was greed in it. I won't mention the religion, but there was greed in it, and that was in the south of Ireland. Greed, and these people were living it up while there was ordinary poor people hardly having enough to eat.
But again, that's misinterpretation. Jesus and God and Muhammad and Buddha and all these people, their basic message was just be nice to people. Just be as nice as you can, and you might get that back. And the greed and the selfishness within religion, that's people exploiting other people, isn't it?
It is, yes. It is, and with these mosques, they seem to be popping up awful quick all over the Midlands, yes. Anyway. And I suppose that's worrying people too, for fear that a certain race of people are taken over.
Should it be worrying people, though, Matt?
Probably yes.
Why?
Well, they seem to be better educated, and they seem to have been able to get better jobs through their education, where the other people are probably neglecting themselves. And if you neglect yourself, then you find fault with other people as well.
But so that's not the fault. If again, this is a generalisation, but let's go with your premise as being true. If Muslims are getting better education and therefore getting better jobs, well, good luck to them.
Well, that's what I say. Good luck to anybody that will try and make his life better by working himself to the limit, where other people are probably satisfied to sit out at home watching television, and if they see the neighbour doing very well in a nice car with them, they just plainly get jealous.
Matt, we're going to move that. I've heard this accusation, Chris. Mosques, they're popping up everywhere. There's mosques popping up. You turn your back for 5 minutes, you look round, there's a mosque there. Is that true? How many are getting built? Do we know?
Well, I think in Birmingham, I think that there's just.
I know I put you on the spot for figures, so I won't hold you to this completely.
No. I think there's around 100, but I think what we have to remember is that there's still a lot more churches than there are mosques in the West Midlands in the UK as a
lot
whole.
More churches that are sitting empty.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this is the thing is that when you look at some of the churches, the new churches that are opening, a lot of those come from sort of African tradition of Christianity, because actually these are the communities that are actually going and worship at the churches. In the same way with mosques as well, it's a kind of supply and demand thing, that actually people are going to mosques, so that's why mosques are popping up and that's why they're being built. I think that, what we have to realise is that, that some of the more mainstream churches, the Church of England, the Methodist churches and so on, actually a lot of those are, largely empty on a Sunday morning, so it's, we're not seeing a kind of growth in the number of, kind of mainstream churches. We're seeing a growth in mosques, but it is really a supply and demand thing.
Another argument that I've heard, Islam is a religion. It's not a religion of peace. It's a religion of hate, and it's a religion of violence.
Well, I think that, when I was listening to Matt previously, I think that what we have to differentiate is from the ordinary believer of any religion, somebody who gets spiritual enrichment, gets some sort of something from actually practicing their religion, their beliefs that they have, and we have to separate those from the people, the very, very small minorities within each of these religions who will use that for division, for exploitation, will use it for political or ideological gain, will use it to oppress, to divide, to sort of target and vilify others, sometimes within their own religion even. I think we have to differentiate that. And it's not necessarily the religion itself, it's not necessarily the ordinary believer, it's the way in which that religion is adopted and used by a small number within religions that actually creates the problems.
Hey, and I don't know if you know, Dylan, have you read the Bible? Oh, it's one of the most violent books in the world. It's been a long time since I read it, but I remember reading bits of it as a kid and thinking, oh my goodness, this is incredible. You can make this into a film starring Steven Seagal. Yassir's in Walsall. Good morning, Yassir.
Hi, good morning. I'd like to talk about what happened yesterday regarding the Tipton Mosque.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm the youth member for the Aisha Mosque in Warsaw, where it was a terrorist attack was done a few weeks ago. Basically, first of all, the callers are with a lack of knowledge, and they're talking nonsense about Islam.
What have people been saying that's nonsense, Yassir?
Okay, first of all, they don't know what the meaning of Islam is, first of all. Second of all, Islam is a proper, peaceful religion. Our God says that even if you kill one person, is equal to entire world, and he will be judged in the hereafter.
Now, actually, that's a good point to flag up. But people will be reacting to recent attacks and attacks over the last few years, where people have claimed to be doing them in the name of Allah and in the name of Islam.
But to me, they're not Muslims, okay?
But they say they are, don't they?
Yes, they are, because I'll give you an example. I know which you won't like, is media is handcuffed, okay, to the government, right? Media can only present to the nation what the government wants, okay?
How do you come to that conclusion?
Okay, the reason why I said that way is because what is happening in Afghanistan, what is happening in Iraq, what is happening around the world, okay, with Muslims. There's lack of knowledge that going around and giving wrong information regarding Islam. That's why, And that's coming from the government? That's coming from the media. I'm not saying the government.
You said we were handcuffed to the government, so that I assume that you meant that was coming from the government and being passed to the media.
Yes, like if media wants to present something, it has to go through the government. The government has to then say yes or no. That's
nonsense, don't you?
Well,
I have never had to make a phone call to Whitehall or Parliament and say, "Look, I'm doing this story about a bomb that went off in Tipton."
I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say to you is that when a publisher wants to publish something, he has to go through the management, all that kind of stuff. I did everything, even if the reporter writes something,
yes,
which I'm the witness,
yes,
that a reporter has wrote something, and was not published.
Yes,
in
yeah.
the
How do you know this? How do you know that?
Because I'm the witness.
No, yeah, but how do you know that everyone has to do that? With the greatest respect, sir, you're talking nonsense.
Well, anyway.
Well, no, not with anyway. Don't come out with a ridiculous statement, be shot down, and then move on. It's a ridiculous thing to say. Of course, that's not how it works. Okay. Yes, there are certain rules within the media, in that we cannot libel people. We have to, and the BBC is particularly the BBC more than Sky. Really double check their facts before they kind of announce a story. Sky will pounce on a story and throw it out there without knowing the facts sometimes, and sometimes get it wrong. The BBC are very efficient at checking and double-checking their facts before they make an announcement on air. But
I agree with you.
But this thing, which is great because we want to get real facts out there. But this thing that we have to run it past the government.
Okay. Basically,
now he's going to think I'm part of the conspiracy. Now he thinks that I've got a little light flashing from the government saying, "Don't let Yassir speak." Yassir, listen, to prove this isn't a conspiracy theory, stay on the line. We will come to you after this, but I have to do a little bit of business. Morning, this is Iain Lee sitting in for Nick here until 12. We're talking about the events in Tipton yesterday. We'll move on in a couple of minutes. I just want to read a couple of texts before we come back to Yassir. Put your names on texts. Quick message about the debate on Muslims. I'm 30 years of age, and as a white English lad, and many of my friends, we don't have issues with the Muslim race or Pakistani people. What we have issues with is the amount of mosques in the country. We see it as we wouldn't be able to go to Pakistan and just put up churches everywhere. I think I said this last week. I spent 3 months in Pakistan. There are a load of Christian churches. There's quite a few, so that's wrong. And also, I think, as they are British, they should speak it. I think the issue most white young people have, and then we lose the text, well, most Muslims do speak English. It's kind of generally the older generation, the grands and granddads who have come over and don't speak English, but most of them do, so that's wrong. Good morning, can I ask, says Laurie, has this been confirmed as definitely a nail bomb? 2, was it actually in the grounds of the mosque? I've heard reports that differ with facts. It would help if facts are factual and not upped to make better news. Tipton made national news some years ago, says Julia in Tividale. When men from Tipton were found fighting in Afghanistan, they later became known as the Tipton Taliban. And Wag, the teacher, says, you can't say no one wants this. Obviously, the person who planted it does, and there will be a small minority cheering this on. You're right, there probably will be. Yassir, we were talking to you. You believe I'm part of the New World Order and the conspiracy theory. What else have you got to say?
Also, I want to say that, first of all, lack of knowledge regarding Muslims, because every time when something happens, especially what's happening in Aisha Mosque or what happened in Tipton, people always think that Muslim. Do you know this Lee Rigby?
I can't talk about Lee Rigby for legal reasons because there is an ongoing court case.
Right. Okay. Okay. It's like. It's hard to explain, but what I'm going to say to you in easy terms is...
Please do. Very quickly, if you wouldn't mind, because we are running out of time.
Okay. It's that they need to learn about Islam and they want to learn what the religion is about. And, whatever is happening is not Muslims doing this.
But there are people... But the people that do it say they're Muslims. And you're right, yes, of course we should learn. We should be taught about all religions at school. I was lucky enough I was. And we should, look at these things with open minds. But a lot of the recent events have been done by people who say they are doing it as Muslims.
Christianity and Muslims, only 5% difference, okay? What the woman was saying before about Muhammad, right?
Yes.
It's only 5% difference. You go to church, we go to mosques. What's the difference?
Okay.
Right?
Yes. Well, listen, we're going to have to end it there just because we are running out of time. But I agree with your point that yes, we could all be better off by learning a little bit more about various other religions. Chris, a final word from you.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to Yassir, and the problem you have is that when you have these kind of statements about people should learn about Islam, actually when you speak to Muslims, and Muslims are not all the same, so their interpretation and understanding of Islam is quite different. Yeah. People will have different theological beliefs. People will have different practices and so on. Some will actually practice their religion, some won't. But maybe sort of culturally.
And that's Muslim. The same with Christianity. You've got your Church of C of E. You've got your Catholics. You've got your across America there are thousands of different people who've interpreted the Bible in different ways.
Absolutely. And I think that what we have to do is that again it kind of we have to be careful not to fall into this trap to suggest that all media is government run, Did it go through? I mean, just to say, I came on here this morning, I had no guidelines as to what I must say, what I can't say, what I can say, where we are.
They won't believe it.
No one will believe it. But, I mean, on Tuesday, I'm actually in London at the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Islamophobia. We are looking at the post-Woolwich situation, and I can guarantee that I'll be talking from a balanced, hopefully balanced, objective and independent viewpoint. And that's really the good thing about, having people like academics come on. We actually have research, we can respond to that, and we are independent in terms of what
Chris,
we say.
I'm going to have to stop you there. My red light is flashing, which means David Cameron wants this interview ended, and I have to ask you to leave the building. It's Dr. Chris Allen from the University of Birmingham, an author of Islamophobia. Put your jacket on and go out in the heat, you silly sausage, for goodness sake. Thank you very much for coming in.
Cheers.
If you want to give us a call, we'll keep talking about this all morning. It's the big story, not just in the region, it's national. And if that plane hadn't blown up yesterday, if that train hadn't gone off the rails in Paris, this would have been the lead story on the national news last night. 08453 009956 81333. Start your text WM. Let's go to Sean in Edgbaston. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Iain.
Sean, what's your take on this?
Well, I've been listening for about an hour now, and I listen to the various sides, and I'm not going to comment on what anybody says. But what I would like to say is, I've not yet heard anybody come on and say that they like Muslims, that they like living amongst Muslims, they realise how kind Muslim people can be, and how. Just basically, I live.
So what are you surmising from that?
Well,
that people don't like Muslims?
Yeah. Well, why would anybody want to be Islamophobic, for instance? Do they not know what people are like?
Do you live amongst Muslims, Sean?
Yes, I do live amongst.
And do you like living amongst Muslims?
I adore living amongst Muslims. I wouldn't move from this area to save my life, and I'm only a stone's throw from the main mosque. When I was ill, they came to my aid. I live on my own, and when I'm going shopping, I could hardly walk. They would take my shopping home for me. Women would stop me in the street and ask me if I needed any help. And they are just very, very kind people.
I spent 3 months in Pakistan years ago, and I made some of the best friends there. I was treated wonderfully. I was invited around to people's houses for tea. You're right, and Sean, yeah. you have raised the point that no one has mentioned they like living with Muslims, and you have mentioned it. So, Sean, thank you very much indeed for that. 08453 009956 is the phone number if you want to give us a call on that. I do need as well, and I'm going to keep banging on about this, tomorrow, I've not seen much of my boy this week. It's been a very, very busy week. Very busy week. So tomorrow, he's 3.5. Got all day with him, but all day with both of them. I'm going to teach the 3.5-year-old how to whistle. Now, I can whistle brilliantly. I can do a strong whistle, a soft whistle, a melodic whistle, a tuneless whistle. I have no idea how to communicate that knowledge to a 3.5-year-old boy. I need I don't want to sound sexy. It's probably going to be a granddad. I need a granddad. Or a grandmother or a mum. But it's probably going to be a granddad. I need someone to call up. How do I teach a boy how to whistle? I know. 08453 009956. We'll also be asking about when was the last time you cried. But we'll talk about that in a bit. The question now is, does every child need a dad? I'm really keen to hear from you if you grew up without a dad and if you think it affected your life adversely. Did it have a negative effect on the way you were, in that you possibly didn't have a strong male role model? Or a mole roddle. In parts of the West Midlands, up to 70% of children are now raised in households without their fathers. A recent study has found that nearly 1 million kids in the UK are growing up without having enough contact with their dads. Researchers from the Centre for Social Justice found that the lack of a male influence in children's lives can lead to higher rates of crime, teenage pregnancy, and give them a disadvantage in life. Well, Yasmin Alabaya-Brown spent a week in Ladywood in Birmingham. She's on the line now. Good morning, Yasmin.
Good morning.
Yasmin, what did you find during your week in Ladywood?
Let me just... Sorry, I've suddenly got a frog in my throat. Let me just say two things very quickly before I say what I was doing in Ladywood.
Yes.
I'm not part of this awful Ian Duncan Smith agenda or the Tory agenda.
No.
About blaming lone parents or get married, any of that. I'm just not. But the what I wanted to know was how it feels, both for the mothers and the children. Not when the dads died. When dads die, that's different. We all have to get used to it. But it's when fathers just are not part of the children's lives in any meaningful way. What does that feel like? Does it matter? Does it hurt? And I wanted to just talk to people who are living it.
So you're talking about where the father has made, a conscious decision not to be part of that child's life?
Well, I don't even know if it was as thought through as that.
Right.
They get women pregnant, women have children, and the dads have vanished as if turned into mist or something. So it's not even conscious. It's just what they do. It doesn't feel, they want lovers but not mothers, and they want the fun of sex, untrammeled sex, without the consequences.
Let's talk about how it affected the mums first, Yasmin. What difficulties or what did you find out about them?
Well, one thing to say is you have to be very strong. I was a lone mother for a while when my ex-husband left us, and I get very angry when people say all these mothers want to be alone and steal our sperm and all that.
They want council flats, don't they, Yasmin?
Yes, well, exactly. That's what the image is.
Yes.
Well, the mums were really strong and committed to their children. The ones who came and actually they were really open, and they really were very, very hard-pressed. And they knew that their children... I did this just before Father's Day. And this whole country would be celebrating Father's Day. And here was an area where it was kind of almost meaningless. And the women kept saying, I didn't want this in my life. I don't want my children, my daughters, to go through what I've gone through. But equally, I did talk to men who were also very open. And I talked to men who themselves had never been fathered. And so were not fathering now. And I just thought, and one bit that wasn't in the piece because it was a very long piece. 3 little girls, 2 black girls and a white girl, about 10 years old in their school uniforms, were walking past me, and I said, "Hi, girls. Do you live with your dads?" And they smiled at me and they said, "Yes." And off they went. And then about 10 paces later, they turned and came back, and they said, "Actually, we just say that." And at that point, I nearly cried, So there is
So why were they just saying that? The stigma, or were they living in a fantasy slightly? Why was that?
Because the world expects, there's Father's Day coming.
Yeah.
I think for young girls, fathers have a very different role to play. As for men, it's a very important role, but very different. And I think not having a dad, maybe they were fantasizing, yes, I don't know, but, I didn't have at all a meaningless relationship with my father. And I think it's left a lot of problems inside me, too. It's something that leaves you with something you have to deal with when you have relationship with men later on. But I also don't think that all fathers are good fathers and violent and bad fathers are better gone than there. I do believe that. But I think for the men, they need to think about how they are missed when they wander off.
We do hear, don't we, about how important it is for... there's a massive shortage of male primary school teachers. And the reason this is important, why we need more male primary school teachers, is because so many kids don't have a male role model to look up to or to talk to. How important do you think it is to have that male role model for children?
Well, I'm not even sure about the role model theory, but I do think that not having somebody dependable... a man who is dependable, they can trust and have a relationship with, a non-sexual relationship with, is really key. And there's an old Sikh shopkeeper in Ladywood who's kind of become the male in their lives, older people, people in their 20s as well as children. And I think having teachers, good teachers, would kind of help.
Do boys suffer more without having their dad there?
I think they'd suffer differently.
Right.
I think they suffer differently. There was a fight broke out when I was in the community centre, a really nice community centre. The area is really pleasant, actually. It's really nicely kept, and the women support each other and things. I'm not trying to make a misery memoir out of this. But the men, I think, get angry, and there was this fight that broke out between men in their 20s. Really, suddenly, like a chip and fire, really awful fight with chairs and all. And an old man sitting next to me said, none of these men knew their dads. And I don't know if it's true, but it certainly sort of really occurred to me that that's how they respond. I think with women, they kind of trust the wrong kind of men because the men have been missing from their lives. So as they are growing up, they're more easy to exploit. They choose bad men because they've never met good men, so it's different.
How do we break this cycle, then? Is there anything that could be done? Are their children destined to fall into the same traps?
Who knows? But I think that would be the third generation. And I did talk to a very interesting man, Naz, who was very open, a very gentle man in his 20s. And he himself had never known his father. He's got two girls with two different mothers. And I said to him, but you're repeating the pattern here. And he said, I know, and I feel really bad about it. I didn't want to, but I've done it. And so that's the thing. They're almost kind of trapped in the only lives they know. And it's only when men, young men and boys in school maybe are taught that not just sex education, but sex responsibility, that maybe.
I was being slightly flippant with my comment before about that they all these single mums, they just want bigger council flats. And it does annoy me when people level that accusation because they're saying that having kids is the easy option. Looking after kids is one of the hardest jobs in the world.
Absolutely. And when you're on low incomes, like there was a mother who was training to be a mechanic, really fab woman, really. A better mother than a lot of middle-class mothers, I can tell you. Because for her, she had no help, right? And she was trying to do her very best for her kids, who were really nicely mannered and so on. But what does she do? What does she do? She's really struggling. And yes, having this palatial council house, my foot, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And people who make policies have got to go into these areas and see what these women are doing before they mouth off the way they do.
And finally, these dads are missing out. It is one of the hardest jobs in the world, but it's so rewarding, isn't it?
It is. I think if only they knew what a continuous relationship with a child can give you as a man. No girlfriend, no kind of multiple girlfriends can possibly be worth the loss of such a thing. But they've never learnt it themselves, and I think maybe schools could do more. Maybe dads need to go into school, committed dads from estates, and there are some, need to go into schools and talk to the boys about what a great thing it is to be a dad.
Yasmin Alibi Brown, thank you very much indeed. She's right. Being a dad, being a parent of any kind, it is such hard work. It's such hard work, particularly if you've got a job as well and but the rewards are incredible. And my children drive me round the bend. They are two of the naughtiest little boys in the world. But, when they just sit on my lap to read a story, or I just spoke to my little boy, my eldest boy, before we came on the show. I suspect he was watching Mary Poppins, as is wanted. Mary Poppins is the thing. Can I watch Mary Poppins? You've watched it twice already! Because he was giving me that slightly distant, but he was blowing kisses down the phone, and when are you coming home, Dad? How important is dad? Does every child need a dad? If you've brought up kids without a dad... very briefly, my dad... I didn't speak to my dad from pretty much the age of 15 until about 3 years ago. But we kind of had a big falling out, and he was he's a massive idiot, to be honest, and I, in turn, was a bit of an idiot. And we kind of made peace about 2 years ago, and then he died this year. How selfish of him. He died this year, and I was heartbroken. And looking back, I just think, what a waste of 35 years. 25 years, what a waste. And I wish he'd been around, when I was younger and older. How important is a dad to you? Are you a single parent struggling without a dad? I'm intrigued as to why these dads don't want to get involved. It's great fun. You get to hang out with kids and play with kids. 08453 009956. Shabana Mahmood. Am I going to Shabana first? Yes, let's go to Shabana. Hello, Shabana.
Hello there.
Shabana, what's your take on all of this?
Well, I mean, I'm very happy to have a debate about the importance of
You're
that.
the MP for Ladywood, of course, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes, and because I'm the MP for the area, I do want to point out
Yes.
that I do think that this Centre for Social Justice report is actually highly misleading. And I don't know if you've already discussed in your programme, but actually, I'm not even sure that their numbers add up. They've focused on one tiny area in my Ladywood ward,
Yep.
which has 772 households in it. Only 385 of which have dependent children, and only 19 of which have lone parents. And you don't need to be an expert at maths to know that 19 out of 385 is not 70%. So I'm actually, I've asked the Centre for Social Justice to stand up their figures, and they've not yet got back to me. So I do feel like we have to treat the description of Ladywood as a man desert with a lot of caution.
Well, well done you for flagging that up, and do let us know if you get their correct figures, because it will be nice to have a look at those at some point. But are you concerned about, if it's not 70%, but are you concerned about the families growing up without dads?
I mean, every week in my constituency surgery, I see what I call the effects of poverty, and what I think drives family breakdown actually in my constituency and similar constituencies in the country is a lack of jobs. That's where I think the pressure point is. My constituency has the highest rate of unemployment in the country, and I think a lot of some of the social issues we find come as a result of the lack of jobs in the constituency and in the city, and the lack of skills that people have in order to get those jobs. That's where I think the biggest pressure points are. And the families that I meet in my constituency surgeries, it's always around household finances and living in cramped and inappropriate conditions. That is what, those parents that come to see me tell me is causing issues in their own relationships and affecting the way in which they can raise their children. And on your wider point, of course, dads are important. And in an ideal scenario, I'm very lucky. I come from, a two-parent household. I have an excellent relationship with both my mum and my dad. But I equally know in my own constituency, lots of families headed up by single mums where a grandparent steps into the breach, or an uncle or an auntie. And I think where you've got, less traditional family structures, but there's still a connection with extended family members, I think that actually those children, those parents actually have just as much support they need in order to raise their children, because it is hard work. It's very difficult to raise a family entirely on your own. And where you've got support from other family members, I think that, you've still got, consistency and stability for your children. And I think that it's important to recognise that we shouldn't just be tarring all families that are not the traditional setup as if somehow they're not good enough, or those children are somehow doomed to do less well in life.
Well, it's interesting you mention that, Shabana, because there are some newspapers in particular that kind of do paint single mums, well, as scum of the earth, as scroungers. They're having another baby because they want to get another bedroom and they want a bigger flat or a bigger house. Now, obviously, it's maybe one or two like that, but the majority, of course, are not like that. What problems are you finding that single mums, and it mainly is single mums, what problems are you finding that they're coming to you with?
Well, I mean, just to say, I think that stigmatising single mums in that way is absolutely disgraceful. What they come to me with are issues around jobs, around childcare. Many of the young mums I meet would like to get back to work. They would like to, if they left school very young without any qualifications, they would like to go back to college or do an evening class. And the things that stand in their way are issues around childcare. And then also just not knowing how to get back into the job market if they've been out of it for a while, or if they've never been the job market and not knowing how to navigate their way around that and not necessarily finding the kind of tailored support that they need through the current work programme that the government's introduced or the job centre more generally in order to get into work. So those are the issues. And obviously, struggling financially, that they think that quite rightly, the only way out of it is to get into work and improve their circumstances. And usually what I come up against is the desperation of these people to find work. And that is where I think that the debate should head. I mean, it's quite lazy, actually, and very easy for some journalists to stigmatise and imply somehow that the state can legislate for people's relationships, somehow pass a law that people have to stay together, which is, frankly, not possible and not workable. So instead of thinking about social stigmatisation of people, I think that we need to equip people with the basic tools they need, jobs and housing, in order to be able to live stable lives, whether that's in traditional family setups or with extended family around you, but in a stability to children, because I think it's the stability that allows the children then to flourish at school. Where you've got a more chaotic setup, where one person is struggling on their own, as anybody would do. If you've got 2 or 3 children who are very young, I'm not a parent myself, but, the parents I know, it's an absolutely physically difficult job to do. It's 24/7. And if you've got no support, of course, it's not that unexpected. Children might have some more chaos in their lives. And if you're able to get stability into people's lives, I think that's how you give children the very best chance they have to flourish, regardless of which family they come from, regardless of the setup that they have. But I'm absolutely convinced it's jobs and housing that are the key to that.
Shabana Mahmood, MP for Ladywood, thank you very much indeed. Now, how many people there were shocked by what she said when she said that loads of the single mums that come to her are keen to get back into work? Because if you read certain newspapers, the Daily Mail and Daily Express, they're all scroungers. These single mums, they're all scroungers. Oh, do you know what? I need some more money. I'm going to have another baby. That doesn't really... Listen, trust me, babies are well expensive. That doesn't really happen. There might be 1 or 2, as there are in everything. But if you want more money, you're not going to go and have another baby. Because babies are very, very expensive. I don't know if you knew that. And it is interesting that what she said there, that lots of the single mums that come to her are looking for more work. I bet that surprised a few of you, hasn't it? Well, give me a call this morning, 08453 009956. Let's open this up to the whole kind of parenting spectrum, shall we? How important are dads? I would suggest they are very important. I would suggest... a good dad... Well, it's important to both sex, kids of both sexes. I would suggest a good dad is more important to the boys, isn't it? Isn't it? Because that father is teaching that boy how to grow up, how to interact with women, how to interact with other men, how to kind of be responsible for your manly actions. Manly actions? I haven't done manly actions for a while. I don't know what that means. A terrible choice of phrase. But maybe I've got that wrong. Give me a call. 08453 009956. We'll take some calls on this. Sarita and Vivian, we'll come to you in a few minutes after the travel. Just quickly going back to what we were talking about in the first hour of the show, the incident in Tipton yesterday. I've just been handed a few texts. Let's do 2 of these texts at random before we go to the travel. The thing about Islam, says Mel, which worries people, is the belief that it's Islam's aim to dominate the world and become the only religion. We who do not follow Islam are infidels. Ask a Muslim if this is true. That's Mel from Bilston. OK, well, I will be I'm speaking to Muslims now. Is that true? 08453 009956. Chris in Albury says, you have such a lot of jokers on your programme. Just look at Syria, Egypt, Iraq, Pakistan, etc., and see who the biggest killers of Muslims are. Themselves. There might be some people who disagree with the figures for Iraq. British people in general have no interest in religion, and that is what Muslims do not understand. We have no interest in their religion. 08453 009956. We'll speak to Vivian and Sarita on the importance of male role models in families. But now at 11:15, let's get the travel. Morning, this is Iain Lee sitting in for Nick Conrad. It's a mixed bag this morning. We're going to lighten things up a little bit after 11. Don't panic. Mr. Mannering, don't panic. We'll get back to talking about how important fathers and dads are as role models, but we have been talking this morning. The big story, of course, on BBC WM is the explosion that went off outside a mosque in Tipton yesterday. Just a reminder for those who may have missed it, the attack could have maimed hundreds of people were it not for the fact that Friday prayers had been put back 1 hour because of Ramadan. Well, our reporter, Steve, is out there. Steve Herman. Steve, I believe you've got a guest with you.
Yes, good morning. I'm here in Tipton on Victoria Road. Quite a bit of activity, even more activity now at the moment, with fire and rescue trucks and police vans here, forensics coming and going. I'm with Councillor Iain Jones, one of the councillors in the Tipton Green Ward here. And, I mean, apart from all this hive of activity, you're keen and everyone in the community is keen to say it's business as usual.
It is business as usual. In fact, it's more quiet than usual. The only activity that we seem to be having is the police presence, obviously for the reasons that we all know of. But the local community, whereas they were interested last night in what was happening, there's very little. In fact, there's only a couple of parents coming with prams and a dog walking past, so it's very quiet at the moment, which is very good.
I mean, that's nice, because is that a message to whoever's behind this explosion yesterday afternoon, less than 24 hours since? Is that a message to them to say Tipton will not be affected, Tipton will not be deterred?
That's quite right. I think one of the contributors on your programme today was saying this is the worst message to any of the extremists who want to cause disharmony in a community. It's business as usual. In a month's time, we'll have a large community event where several thousand people will attend, and we'll all have a good day. This is a very peaceful neighbourhood, and the community gets on well with each other.
Absolutely. Well, that's Councillor Iain Jones joining us live on BBC WM this morning. It is a very peaceful scene, beautiful summer's morning here in Tipton, with plenty of police activity, but everybody is keen to send across that message. As you said, Iain, don't panic.
Thank you very much, Stephen. We'll be speaking to Steve Herman, now reporter, out near the Tipton Mosque again before the end of the show. Going back to this story, parts of the West Midlands, up to 70% of children are now raised in households without their fathers. That figure has been disputed by an MP from the area, but it kind of opens up the bigger debate, doesn't it, about single mums. They get such a bad press. Oh, single mums, scroungers. Oh, they're just having babies to get more money. Yeah, really? Babies are so expensive. If anyone is having a baby just to get more money, I suspect that, their head's not screwed on properly. And how important are dads? Do give us a call about this, 08453 009956. Vivian, we'll come to you in a second. Sarita's on the line. Hello, Sarita.
Hiya.
Sarita, you've brought up your child without a dad, is that right?
That is correct.
Tell me your story.
What happened with me was I came from a very traditional Indian family. Mother from the city in India, very educated, sophisticated woman. Looked like Meena Kumari in her young days. And
Looked like
father,
who?
Meena Kumari.
Oh, I don't know Meena
You don't know
Kumari.
Meena Kumari? I'm shocked.
No, who is it? A famous star?
Yeah, she's the Marilyn Monroe of India.
Whoa.
And I'm very horrified that you don't know about her.
Can I redeem myself slightly?
Yeah.
Perdesi, janana hey. Is that one you back in? Am I one back into your heart?
Yes, you have.
There we go. A little bit of
That is
Perdesi.
good to know.
Good.
And father, a typical rich village rogue, they both got married, decided to move to England, kept traditions up much as we could when we reached here. Regularly praying and following all of the culture as much as we could, them inhibiting us as much as they could and protecting us from this cliche Western culture. So this is how the childhood was, a very interesting childhood.
Yeah.
And then it just so happened that my father and mother didn't get on, so my father wasn't really around, even to me as a child. So this could be something as why I feel quite strongly, because I think my mum, she was very educated and, she tried very hard and she did quite a good job with me and my siblings. So I ended up travelling the world, having quite a few jobs, always being independent from a very early age. Not having a father made me and gave me that independence. Not having him around, I knew he was there, but, the pain was more for me as a woman, as a young girl and now a woman, not having that father figure, unbelievably. From what I gather and what your discussion is about the fact that maybe, father figures not having them there affect little boys more. But I feel quite differently. I feel little girls actually learn more from their fathers than they do from their mothers because they make them stronger.
But you've got kids now, Sarita, have you?
Yes, I have.
How many have you got?
I've got a little boy, he's 5.
Yep.
And I had him at the age of 35 because, unfortunately, because of our family breakdown and the traditional get married and everything, all kind of fell apart. I waited to have an arranged marriage all the way up until I was 25, and nothing ever came along, and it was just up in the air until my mother just finally said to me, you find somebody yourself. But there was a snag. He has to be Indian.
Oh.
He has to be Indian.
Right.
And that was a very, very difficult thing to do because a lot of Indian guys back in the 80s and 90s were from traditional families.
So they had arranged marriages.
There you go.
Yeah.
And obviously then your family respect comes into it. And once they know your background, your father's not been around, and, you're quite a westernised family. And, the way that I was quite a little bit too much for them, really.
Yeah.
I think, for what they were seeking back in the 80s and 90s. But now that we're year 2013, things have completely changed. So when I hit 35 and I met an Irish guy,
yeah,
and I fell in love. And unfortunately, by the time I'd got pregnant and I'd fallen out of love, it was the biggest decision that I was ever going to make in my life, that I was going to keep this child. It did have nothing to do with money, benefits. It was about love.
Yeah.
It was about being a mum. It was my opportunity as a 35-year-old woman physically to be able to do this. And every night I prayed for guidance, and every night I got the same answer: keep this child. And the biggest hurdle was telling my family, who are absolutely disgusted with me. They expected more of me. It was about their expectations and not what I wanted. So in the end, I just told them, if you're there, you're there. If you're not, you're not. And I said the same thing to, my baby's father. I said, if you're there 100% for this child. If you're not, then I prefer it if you just stayed out of our lives. But if you're ever ready to come back 100%, as a father figure, in your son's life, we're here, but I will manage.
Now, when you say 100%, do you mean having a relationship with you as well as with the boy?
No.
Just with the boy?
The relationship with the child, because all of this becomes, when you are a mother, you know, that child's in your belly for 9 months. Even couples that are married, the father starts feeling jealous. You've heard these stories because the woman is more bothered about the child. She's looking after the baby.
Yeah, I had that with my boys, definitely, yeah.
Exactly. So this is the same sort of thing, whether you're married or not, or whether you're with this person.
Sarita, just because time is against us, and I'm finding this fascinating. Does the father of your boy have nothing to do with him at all?
Yes, exactly. It has absolutely nothing.
And is that completely his choice?
It's completely his choice. Completely his choice. You see, there's different dimensions to this single mum thing. There isn't just, this woman's here, she's had this baby, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Single mum, there are different dimensions, and everybody has different things in their life that they have to tackle. And this, for me, was the biggest. And I've been told, and I feel that I've been quite successful without the role model, or so-called role model, as a father for my son so far.
Well, to be honest, he sounds like a right little toe rag in that case. If you didn't want anything to do with it, you're better off without it. So does he not have any interest? Does he not send you a text once every 6 months asking how?
What he does is he just pays money.
Oh, nice.
He lives quite far out now. He's moved to Ireland.
Yeah.
And he just pays money into my bank account, which goes straight into my child's savings account. If we need to use a little bit, we do. But generally, I work and I sort of work quite hard. I've got a house to run and obviously bills and things, and then I've got this little boy, and I've got lots of good friends and people that help out when I need.
Has your little boy? Is that your little boy in the background?
Yes, he's playing in the garden.
Good for him.
Quite happy.
Well done.
And if somebody were to walk in now, the last thing on their brain would be where's his dad, because you could never tell.
Yeah.
In fact, even when he started school, they were quite shocked when in the process when I'd written on the form, his father's details, but I am single, and he wouldn't be picking him up from school and all those details.
Does the little boy not ask where Daddy is?
Oh, of course.
And what do you say to him? How do you explain that?
Oh, do you know something? There is no use, and I learnt this the hard way from being a child myself, because Asian families, especially traditional Asian families, have a way of cotton budding things and making them sound like they're not.
Yeah.
To me, if my mum had just told me the truth about the situation, I don't think I would have missed that father figurely love. I would have grown delinquent inside myself and stronger, which I did do later on. And I just told my little boy the truth. Mummy and Daddy didn't love each other, but Mummy decided to have you, even if Daddy wasn't around, because Mummy loves you so much, and you made Mummy's dreams come true when you came into my life. And that is what I tell him. And those words, my little boy just turns around and he says, well, if we get a daddy, we get one, and if we don't, we don't. And that's his attitude.
Yes, I think you're right. I think at the age of 5 or even younger, you have to be honest with them. You can't start telling lies, because when they find out you've been lying, then how could you? Exactly. What are you going to do when he wants to go and find his dad, which he will do one day?
Yes, he will do one day. We've discussed this, and I said to him, when you think that you want to see your daddy, when you're at a good age, when you're over 10 even, because, you know, like the new 12 is the new 16 nowadays, isn't it? So,
blimey, don't.
You know, I said to him, you know, Mum, we will support you. We will find him. But you have to be ready, and you have to be strong, and you have to be you have to be a strong, good man, even though you'll only be young. You have to be a man when you meet your dad. And you'll have so many things to say to him, but Mummy will go with you. And then if you feel you want to carry on seeing your daddy, then that's good. But if Daddy is going to let you down and you feel you don't want to see him anymore, then you can always be. Mummy's always here. And you know, he's got so many good father figures in his life. His uncles and friends that I've made, and you know, he's seen families.
His dad's missing out. I can hear him in the background, and he sounds like fun. Yeah. Finally, Sarita, can your boy whistle?
Not quiet yet, but he can do lots of other things. He never shuts up.
I can hear. I want to teach. I want to teach my boy. My boy's 3.5. I want to teach him to whistle tomorrow, but I don't know how to teach him.
It'll be a mission. Do you know what? More than anything else, the whistling and everything else.
Yeah.
The main thing to teach them is just to be strong.
Yeah.
In the person that you are, because you know, if he was a little boy who was living with his father and he didn't have the mother, I think that would have affected him incredibly.
Sarita, lovely to talk to you. It sounds like you're doing a cracking job with your boy. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much for that. Yes, teaching him to be strong is important. But tomorrow, teaching him to whistle is even more important. I hate to say that. This is the mission. Thank you very much, Sarita. Fascinating story there. She seems to be surviving well without the dad. Vivian, we'll come to you after the news. How important is a father figure to a young child? And if you're a single mum, you're a scrounger, sponging off the state. That's what some people would have you believe. How do you react when you hear that? And more importantly, how on earth do I teach a 3.5-year-old to whistle tomorrow? I can do it. It's easy to whistle. I just don't know how to communicate that information. 08453 009956. You can send me a text, 81333. Start your text WM, and maybe I'll speak to you after the latest news.
BBC WM
95.6.
Teachers, if you don't like it, get out of it.
Pensioners who can't do anything to boost her income.
Abduction, as far as I'm aware, she actually went willingly.
Iain Lee, Saturdays
9 till 12. BBC WM
95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, sitting in for Nick Conrad. I'm here this week, I'm here next week, and then Nick is back. He'll be back wearing a ring on his finger. Well, I assume he'll be wearing a ring on his finger. Not everyone wears wedding rings, which I think is very, very odd. Not every man in particular wears wedding rings, which I'm always a little bit suspicious of. Why would you not advertise the fact by having a little ring on your finger? Anyway, going off on a slight tangent already. I'll save that for a bit later on. Talking about lots of things this morning. We're asking, does every child need a dad? We'll speak to Vivian in Burton-on-Trent in a bit. That's after the figures reveal that in parts of the West Midlands, up to 70% of kids are now raised in households without their fathers. I need help. How do I teach a 3.5-year-old boy to whistle, for goodness sakes? Also, between now and 12... we'll be talking about prostitutes. I know, it's a diverse mix. We'll be asking, when was the last time you cried? I do love a good cry. Oh, I love a good cry. There was a McDonald's advert that made me cry. Oh, I was in floods of tears. When was the last time you cried? 81333. Start your text, WM, and we'll have the latest on developments in Tipton.
Call 08453 009956.
Iain Lee on BBC WM
95.6.
The reason we're talking about crying is producer Jo, who has been very, very kind to me the last few weeks. I'm sure she's hideously rude about me when I've gone, but when I'm here, she's nice, and that's all that counts, as far as I'm concerned. Her little boy, 5-year-old little boy, got his first ever school report. And you know, it was... What's he going to say in a school report for a 5-year-old? Needs to pay more attention, focus more, disrupt... No, they're going to say nice things. And so she got a little bit teary-eyed, which is nice. Then Dad read it. He had to leave the room. He was sobbing. Full-on sobbing. He had to leave the room. Good for him, I say. Well done. I embrace crying. I'm a big fan of crying. I don't do it as much now. I'm trying to think... last time I cried was when my dad died, and earlier this year. But before that, when was the last time I cried? I used to cry a lot. I can't watch. My wife's favourite film is E.T. Oh, I couldn't watch that with her. Oh, I'd be doing the... just got something in my eye thing, or hoping she'd look away so I could very quickly dab the eye. And then I would have to leave and have a little cry and then go back in. I'm constantly crying. I cry too much, me. I'll probably have a little cry on the drive home later on. So when was the last time you had a good cry, and what was it about? You give us a call on that. I'm a fan of crying. 08453 009956. On the subject of... and I'm throwing all these things out. You can call in about any of them. The last hour is always a little bit higgledy-piggledy, isn't it? Which I think is quite good fun. On the subject of dads and father figures, it's Vivian in Burton-on-Trent. Morning, Vivian.
Hello there.
Vivian, what's your take on this?
Yes, well, I'd see years ago when I was a young child, I'm 70 now, I'd see my dad about once every 3 weeks, occasionally at the weekend, and in the latter part of the day, because he was on shift work with a pit. He was a deputy and a shop firer.
So you didn't see much of him, that was because of work?
Well, yeah, he'd be... if he was on nights then,
yeah,
he'd go about 8:30 because he'd walk there to get there for 10. And then, of course, he never had transport back then. And then he'd come home like about, 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. I'd be going, just about wake up, go to school. I'd go to school, come back, he'd still be in bed resting, ready to go to
on
work.
those times when you did see him once every few weeks...
it was lovely.
And was he happy to hang out with you and play with you and do stuff?
Yeah, of course he was.
Yeah.
But the whole thing about it is, back then you had extended families, grandparents, aunts, uncles.
Yep.
For a few years ago, when the CPR came in, all that stopped because when they brought the CPR in, Child Protection Register.
Oh, yes.
At the time, until they rescinded it, when mothers with children were looking for childcare, they wanted the grandparents to help out and the uncles and aunts to help out, but they found they'd have to pay so much to get a CPR for them. So it split the family.
Oh, OK, right.
And ever since then, the young parents have more or less been abandoned by the extended families to get on with their own, whether they're married or not.
I think you're confusing things slightly. I think the CPR is a list of children who need protection because they're at risk of harm.
And, well, I don't know if it's...
Are you talking about the yeah? I think you're talking about the parent when I can't think what it's called now. The DRB. The CRB, the CRB. Anyway, So, but the thing where they have to get money out of them, yes.
They had to register and be certified to work with children.
Oh, hang on a second. What's the?
That was years ago.
Yeah, why is the CRB stopping dads seeing their kids? I'm getting confused.
Not now.
I'm getting confused, Vivian.
Hang on.
Vivian, explain.
Let me explain.
Right, you explain.
Not stopping. It's not stopping dads.
Oh, it's stopping men. It's stopping men working with children.
When I was a child, I could rely on my father figure being not father figure, but my man figure being my uncle or my granddad.
But you're saying the CRB is stopping uncles.
Well, it was.
No, it was no.
Because
Vivian, the CRB has never stopped uncles hanging out with their nephews.
Yeah, hang on, let me explain.
Okay.
There were stories in the paper.
Okay.
And it was on the radio.
What the CRB check where you have to
about when mothers were looking for childcare.
Yeah.
Help with childcare, looking after his children, babysitting, all that.
Yeah.
And they wanted the grandparents.
Yeah.
And uncles and aunts to babysit for them.
Yes.
They were going to have to get them certified
Complete and utter tosh. With the greatest of respect, Vivian, that's nonsense. It was. That report was written by Noddy. With the greatest of respect.
I don't know who it was.
With the greatest of respect, Vivian, let me put your mind at rest, okay?
I know it doesn't apply now.
And it didn't then. Uncles and grandparents have never had to get a CRB check to look after their own relatives. Well, Vivian, listen, we'll leave it there. No wonder I was getting confused. Because it was nonsense. Trust me. I worked at Great Ormond Street for a while. I got a CRB check. I'm a big fan of CRB checks because it stops naughty people working with vulnerable people. But at no point ever has an uncle had to get a CRB to look after their niece or nephew. Let's just stop that now, shall we? It's a shame. I wanted to ask Vivian when was the last time he cried, but we didn't get to. We got so mired down in nonsense that I thought it was best to move on. 08453 009956. When was the last time you cried? On the subject of what happened yesterday, the events in Tipton, it's Barry in Tamworth. Morning, Barry.
Morning, Ian.
Barry, what's your take on this?
The feedback I appear to be getting from this log is that when the agent callers come on, they seem to have a problem when the likes of me or whatever, we take any crime committed, terrorism, or what happened in Woofing, Rochdale, or whatever, when we label these people as Islamists or Muslims or agents per se, and the suggestion I've got right, the way this country's going. So what we should do, if the likes of me or Doreen come on, and we want to express an opinion, what we should say about these people, so they don't take umbrage, is that we call them model citizens, right? I'll just come on and say, instead of saying Islamist or Muslim, I'll say the model citizens, and then if they come on and they want to express opinion about me, they just say second-class citizen.
I'm not sure I get your point, Barry.
Well, I've explained it, I think, well enough here.
With respect, sir, I don't think you have. What's this about first-class and second-class citizens?
Well, the way this country's going, I think, I think the likes of the white working class are being treated as second-class citizens.
By whom?
And that's not Dean, and I'm not on my own on this.
By whom? Who is treating you as a second-class citizen, Barry?
Well, I'll just get, it's the way things are going in this country.
Who is treating you as a second-class citizen?
Like the agents, they play the race card, right? I'll tell you, if I could play cards, right, like the agents play the race card, I'll tell you what, I'd be banned from every casino in the world.
I'm going to give you one more opportunity before cutting you off. Who is treating you as a second-class citizen?
Well, I think the Asians seem to get what they want, they get. And we can go and get procreated.
Did the Asians want a bomb in their mosque yesterday? Probably not, they got it.
Hold on. Everybody's saying that this it's an hate crime. Until they get the perpetrators, nobody knows who's done this. It's like, the other day I was on the way and I said, who knows, it could be that they're trying to cause discontentment and disillusionment. And that's trying to, I'm not saying they are a lot, but it could be. Nobody knows till the perpetrators are caught. We just can't say hate crime straight away without. Nobody knows any facts. You just can't go on and say hate crime until facts are known and the perpetrators are caught.
Thanks for calling, Barry.
All right.
Well, there we go. Sometimes I get great joy from doing this job. Sometimes I get very, very depressed from doing this job, and that was a case of me being very, very... How do you feel? Do you feel, as a white working-class person, as I think Barry described himself. Do you feel a second-class citizen, really? The Asians get everything they want, and we, speaking on Barry's behalf, we don't. I don't quite know what that means. Not quite sure what that means. 08453 009956. We're a little bit late, but let's get the travel. He's good, Adrian. I've been listening to him a lot this week. He does a cracking show. I thoroughly recommend you tune in. Listen, good afternoon. No, good afternoon, good morning. Calm down, calm down. It's only 17 minutes past 11 in the AM. This is Iain Lee sitting in for Nick Conrad. Nick would never have got the AM-PM differentiation wrong. No. I've got one more week of filling in for him next week, and then Nick will be back, so don't panic. You can give us a call about all the things we've talked about, crying, the events yesterday in Tipton, teaching children to whistle, and how important are dads. There's a lot there, isn't there? 08453 009956. I'm going to throw something else into the mix as well now, prostitution. Police have made a number of arrests over the last few months in a crackdown on prostitution in parts of Wolverhampton. Officers say that prostitution had traditionally been a problem for many years and that the majority of the women officers encountered are involved in selling sex to fund a drug addiction. Well, what's the best way to tackle prostitution? Should we legalise it or try our best to stop it altogether? I guess there are three kind of main groups involved here. And if you fit into any of these categories, then give me a call. The prostitutes themselves, maybe you do work as a prostitute. Why do you do it? I'm guessing that most of you won't be doing it because it's great fun. It's a great way to earn a bit of extra cash. I would imagine that's unlikely. So why do you do it? The second group of people are the people that use prostitutes. Do you feel guilty about it? Do you feel you are exploiting these poor women? Or do you think, well, hang on, listen, they're prepared to offer a service. I'm paying a few quid. It's a business transaction. What's the problem with it? The third group of people are the residents. I know there are some areas all around the country, but in Birmingham, the Black Country in particular, where this is happening on suburban streets. You might have working girls walking up and down your street late at night. I know of some places where young women are afraid to go out late at night because they might get propositioned. Are you working tonight, love? You got a job on? It happens. So if you fit into any of those categories, 08453 009956. We can speak now to Councillor Bishan Das about how they're dealing with the problem in Wolverhampton. Good morning, Councillor. What's happening there?
Hello, good morning, Iain. This is Councillor Bishan Das from Wolverhampton. I represent Attingshall Ward, and the Steelhouse Lane area comes in Attingshall Ward. And the Steelhouse Lane area has always been a hotspot for this sort of antisocial behaviour activities.
Is this a residential area? For those who don't know it, are there houses there?
One side is houses, the other side is industrial.
And what kind of problem is it? Is it girls, walking up and down at night?
Yeah, they stop by somewhere, sometime on telephone boxes or redundant buildings, and they stop on the footpath. That's how it happened.
And men are pulling up in their cars and then they're going off and having sex?
Men pulling up their cars and... over the past years, police has prosecuted so many car crawlers, and they're taken to court, and there was a huge publicity, I think about 2-3 years ago. Some well-educated, well-paid, respected people, they came from outside, they were caught into that sort of activities. And
but so the problem's come back, has it?
Well, can I say the police, they've done everything. They have been involved, chasing prostitutes, girls, young girls, even underage girls.
Yes.
And they've done everything. And what happened, police increased their activities in one part of the area, and the girls move on to the next part or next road or next street. They keep moving on, and when police keep chasing them, they move across the borough to Walsall or somewhere to Sandwell. And when they were pestered or chased over there by the police, they come back to Wolverhampton. So it's a vicious circle.
So the police making arrests and going and speaking to the girls isn't working. What else can you do to tackle the problem?
It's very, very difficult. Recent changes in legislation are making it difficult for prostitutes to work and severe penalties. I don't think they are working. Police prosecute somebody. It takes such a long time for police to prepare all the casework, all the paperwork, and give it to crime prosecution officers, and taking them to court. And in the court, these girls, they get away with £5 fine or 20 or 200.
Well, the thing is as well, Bishan, I would imagine that these girls don't have much money anyway, and if they get a fine, 20 quid, 50 quid, they'll go out and work to pay the fine.
Well, they never pay fine. That's another thing, you know. You have to take them to court to pay the fine, you know. And in the court, they say, we haven't got anything. Can I say another thing?
You certainly can, Bishop, yes.
You mentioned legalize, outside the city or somewhere.
Is legalised prostitution the way to go?
I don't think it will work. I know some other countries, you know, where there is a legalized sort of thing, but it still works in a residential area. They do come to a residential area.
So if that's not the answer, Bishan, you've got to do something. Do these girls, instead of being punished, do they not need our help? You say there are underage girls, 14, 15-year-old girls. They need help, don't they?
Well, we have been providing help. Our local, public health officers and others, they have been involved, bringing in, helping underage girls. But I was going to mention, there is another group who is actually running a prostitution business, forcing girls onto the street.
Right.
They are the real culprit, and it's very difficult to catch them. Police have been able to, arrest and taken them to court over the last couple of years.
Yes.
And it's slightly reduced in this area, right? It used to be, a great deal of problem. It's gradually, coming back to the area again.
Yeah.
And I think, rather than going after the girls, I think the police need to concentrate people behind this racket of...
Do they know... sorry to interrupt, Bishop, but without naming any names, do the police know who these people are?
I don't think there is anything difficult for the police to find out from the girls. They had been able to find, they have been very successful in pursuing prosecution of those who are actually running this business.
Prosecution of the
They're
prostitution.
forcing the girls into business, and, it's a vicious circle, as I said.
Bishan, is funding a problem for this? Are there not... We were hearing about police forces having to, cut their budgets everywhere. Is that part of the problem, you think, that you just haven't got the money to throw at this?
Well, there is a funding problem as well, but even when there was no funding problem or less funding problem, even then it was difficult to, overcome this problem. I don't know, what's the right answer to this problem.
I think I know the answer. I genuinely think I know the answer. You've got two options, Bishop.
Yeah.
You either have a massive blitz of policing, where the police are out every night for 2 months and they arrest everybody, zero tolerance. You either have that, or you do what they did in Ipswich, which helped the... I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, there was the 5 prostitutes were murdered by a chap called Steve Wright.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Very horrific. And what they did in Ipswich, as well as kind of blitzing for a month or so, they also had a 5-year plan where they went out and they helped the prostitutes. I know there will be some people going, what? But they went out, they found out the reasons they were working as prostitutes, they helped get them homes, if they were in violent relationships, they helped get them out of violent relationships, they helped them find out what benefits they were entitled to. If they had drug problems, they got them into rehabilitation centres. If there are underage prostitutes, they got them with foster care. They went out and helped the girls.
Can I say, Iain?
Please do.
The police they have gone through all this, what you have explained. With the help of social worker, with the help of health visitors, they've done everything over the past 2 years. We have a lot of underage girls, but the problem is still there. When you're saying, why can't the police have, blitzed over the, say 2 months or a month or 2 months?
Yep.
The problem is, these girls operate particularly, over the weekend, Friday, Saturday nights.
Yeah.
And Friday, Saturday night, we need police present, heavy police present in the city centre.
Of course you do.
Right? Because of the nighttime economy, because of the pubs and clubs operating there, and our city, they have at least 20,000 visitors to city only on Friday and Saturday nights. Right?
Yeah.
I have been on a night time, going around with the police. I chair the licensing committee just to see how nighttime economy is working. And you need police there to withdraw police from there onto this sort of problem, antisocial behavior, prostitution problem, will leave a vacuum in the city center. So you have, limited resources. If you try to move them from there to other area, you are leaving other area behind with the vacuum. So, that's not on. I understand that the police has, diverted extra resources onto the prostitute areas, but they can't withdraw all the police or majority of the police officer onto All Saints area. That's very difficult.
Bisham, we have to end it there. Thank you very much. That's Councillor Bisham Das talking about the prostitution problem in Wolverhampton. You can give us a call on that, 08453 009956. We can cross back now live to Tipton. I think we've got Imam Ghulam Rasool, who is the Imam at the Central Jamia Mosque. Good morning, Ghulam.
Good morning.
What have you been allowed in the mosque yet to have a look?
No, the police cordon has been scaled back slightly.
Yep.
There is more movement than yesterday, but still the cordon is still around the mosque itself.
When did you?
So nobody has any access.
When did you find out that a bomb had gone off?
I actually was leading prayers in another mosque, and I started getting phone calls about 1:30, and I just was find it a bit strange that people calling me during Friday prayer time. And then as soon as I finished leading the Friday prayers, I checked and then I found, and somebody said to me, Mr. Rasool, we heard there's been a bomb incident. And what had happened is because the worshippers had come to the mosque, and because of the threat and the evacuation, they actually had gone to other mosques to pray. And so it became highlighted within other mosques, and other mosques had announced it, and the whole news spread so quickly, and then, within the whole community.
How did it make you feel, Ghulam, when you heard the news?
Initially, I was very shocked and couldn't believe it, like anybody else. But I knew that once it happened, it's a very serious situation. So I made my way down here, spoke to the local management committee, the board of trustees, and we coordinated a response. Our help writer, I wrote the statement which went out yesterday, and that hopefully was able to deal with the situation in a very mature and a very measured way.
And have you spoken to people who would normally be using the mosque? What have they said to you?
Well, since the incident, unfortunately, the mosque services have been disrupted, prayer service has been disrupted. The mosque was rescheduled for people to pray in the local community centre, but people generally haven't chosen to go anywhere else to pray. So since yesterday evening, the late evening prayers, the sunset prayers, the twilight prayers, and this morning's pre-dawn prayers, all have been prayed at home. So it's a big, massive disruption spiritually in the psyche of the worshipper, especially in the month of Ramadan.
Can I read you two texts we've had from listeners, both very, very different in their tone? The first one, Ghulam, is from Bill. Iain, I think we should positively celebrate the community response to the Tipton bomb. All the British people of Tipton and beyond, no matter what their religious beliefs, should come together, support each other, and in a single voice say, not on our patch. That's from Bill. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, we've got a text from Charles. And I'm afraid to say that Charles's view is slightly more representative of the text we've had. Let's have a look at every country that's been overrun by Islam, shall we? Peaceful utopias, aren't they? No. Tell your Islamophile commie, this was the doctor that we had in earlier, and Dr. Chris Allen, to shut up. You're not helping. You're just winding people up even more by yet again defending these wonderful, peaceful, honourable Muslims who wouldn't fly aeroplanes into buildings or blow up trains, massacre school children, blow up buses. That's from Charles. How do you react when you hear something like that, Ghulam?
I think if people need to be educated. I think the education system in Britain doesn't talk about diversity and multiculturalism in a global context. We have Christian quarters, Jewish quarters, Buddhist quarters within the Arab world. We have them within Pakistan. You find churches, iconic churches in Pakistan as well, in Kashmir. So I think people really need to understand that Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism are global religions, and they have presence globally. Now, when people, and through migration, when the people of India and Pakistan and Kashmir came to Britain, it was to support Britain in redeveloping itself after post-World War II. Now, that kind of history gets missed, and I think there's a big issue, there's a big gap in education. We study about the Eskimos, we study about the Vikings, we study everything else, but because we live in a global world today, we need to have contextual history which shows how cultures work and how the migration works and how cultures and migration bring diversity and bring strength to places. There is a general understanding if all the migrants left in Britain, there aren't enough workers within Britain to continue with the whole workforce.
And finally, sorry, just to interrupt, just a nod to Bill's text. He's right. The response from the local residents and users of the mosque, it has been, it's been very respectful, hasn't it? Dignity.
Yes, I think the main thing that we've looked at is, A, we see this as a criminal act. Unfortunately, the police have escalated this to a terrorism act already, but we see this as a criminal act of some nature. Until it's proven and investigated, we won't go down that path. Secondly, we've asked for calm and unity. Thirdly, this community is very, very strong. We're very integrated, very multicultural. And if you have time to come down, it's quite. We have a very beautiful park, very beautiful library, beautiful mosque, very beautiful community. And even the hot weather seems to draw that beauty out.
Imam Ghulam Russell, it's lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much. The Imam at the Central Jamia Mosque. Let me just read some more of these texts. 81333. Start your text, WM. Iain, sorry to pick up on a point that Ranjit made. This was a gentleman who called us earlier on about the grooming case. We were told not racial. But when the injured party is ethnic, always racial. I.e., the elderly gentleman killed on way home from mosque, no evidence, but deemed racial, and calls police not doing enough. It's unfortunate fact that not all murders are solved, regardless of colour, religion, age or creed. Iain, I've just seen a police van in Camp Hill roundabout and a large graffiti of swastika, Zionist star and the initials EDL painted on one of the buildings. Let me just do one more of these. Iain, you asked why people are Islamophobic. I'm fearful about Great Britain's future. A few years ago, a Muslim man was on the news saying he would only be happy when a black flag was flying over Parliament. So one bloke, OK, right. I've noticed a huge increase in Indian councillors and MPs. When we get to them being the majority, can they force Sharia law upon us? Well, no, if they're Indian, the odds are they're probably not Muslim. So they won't be promoting Sharia law. And no, they can't force Sharia law upon us. Hope this is putting your mind at ease, Kel, in Birmingham. Also, another Muslim leader said that the Muslims wanted to take over Great Britain and told Muslims to breed. Watch any Midlands Today report from a school in Birmingham and all the kids are Indian. I'm worried that Great Britain will be a little India and no one will try to stop it for fear of being branded a racist. Why would you want to stop it? Embrace it. I grew up in Slough in the 70s and the 80s, and even in the 70s and the 80s there was a huge Indian and Pakistani and Bangladeshi and Kashmiri community. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant. You got to go to a mate's house. You got some of the best food in the world. If you went to a different mate's house a couple of nights a week, within a month you'd eaten yourself around the globe. It was incredible. Wow. Oh, dear. You can give us a call this morning, of course. 08453 009956. We'll get to John in a second on the subject of crime, but we've been talking about prostitution in Wolverhampton. Gerald's in Wolverhampton. Morning, Gerald.
Good morning to you.
What side of this are you on?
I traversed Steelhouse Lane to work for many years.
Yep.
And I can assure you that prostitution always existed there for 50 years. And unless the police get a permanent presence in that lane, it will always be known as a prostitutes area. And everybody knows about it in Wolverhampton. It's no good, that chap going on. He's got to do something about getting the police there every day, every night, and I think he'll wipe it out.
Will it wipe it out, Gerald, or will it just move it half a mile down the road?
I don't think he will, because they do move down the road, but that particular area is noted for it. And it isn't... there aren't so many houses in that area at this moment in time. So it's just a through road to another estate, and, you know, if you're lucky, there's one standing on the corner in a factory or something like that.
The councillor said that there were... Are there some houses on that street?
There are very few.
But even if there are very few, imagine if you live on that street and you've got kids or something, you don't want to, be looking out the window and seeing that happening at night.
But I think no, you don't. I agree with you. But the funny part about it, there's been a church there for 100 years.
Oh. That's a bit of irony, isn't it? Gerald, is the answer that we give the prostitutes like an area of a trading estate or something like that, and we say, right, from 10 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, you can go and stand on the corner in this trading estate, and we will turn a blind eye. It's not near residents. You just get on with it.
Yeah, or issue raffle tickets.
Sorry?
Or issue a raffle ticket.
A raffle ticket? For the ladies?
No, somebody buy one, and if it's there looking nice, they put the raffle ticket up on the frame, sort of thing.
And what do they get? I don't want to, Gerald. I don't want to know what they get. I don't want to know.
Well, I get a shock, I should imagine.
There we
with
go.
The cost.
There we go. Thank you very much indeed. I've literally no idea what those last two phrases meant from Gerald, and I'm not going to investigate further because I fear it could be very, very shocking. I suggest in Wolverhampton they've got a few options, haven't they? Really, they give the prostitutes an area. It's not an area I know particularly well. It's been a long time since I've been there. But there must be a trading estate or an industrial estate somewhere. And they say, right, it's nowhere near residents. There aren't any houses here. All these offices and factories are shut. Between 10 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, you girls can work here. We will turn a blind eye. As long as you clean up afterwards, there's no detritus, I think you know what I mean, lying on the floors. As long as you're not openly doing drugs, you go and hang out there, get on with it, and you'll be safe. They can do that. That's an option. Or they do a blitz where they send the police in every day and every night for 2 months and they arrest everybody that curb crawls. Or you do a long, several-year plan where you help the women. That's the other option, isn't it? I didn't sound shocked when Councillor Bish and Das mentioned the fact there are underage girls, because I've heard that before. Imagine that. How sad is that? There are kids. Underage girls means kids. There are kids walking the streets in Wolverhampton working as prostitutes. Now, however much the idea of prostitution may disgust you, we can't prosecute that. We can't prosecute a 15-year-old girl, can we? She needs help. She needs help now before, suddenly she's a 35-year-old woman working. Something needs to be done, doesn't it? And arresting her and giving her a fine or a slap on, that's not going to work. 08453 009956. I've been talking about crying as well. Producer Joe, her son, got his first school report. She was a little bit teary. Missed it up, I think is the phrase. Her son, her husband, was in floods of tears. He had to leave the room. When was the last time you cried? John in Sheldon, when was the last time you cried, John?
2005.
Oh, that's a very specific date. Can I ask why?
Yes, well, around that time, I live in a small cul-de-sac, and we needed work doing by the council, and I'm very often called in to see John Hemmings.
Oh, yes.
The MP for Yard at his office.
Yeah.
To discuss it. And whenever I spoke to John, I always spoke in a very firm voice, so we both understood what we were talking about.
Yes.
And intended, I wasn't disrespectful.
No, you're firm.
I always do, and then you got no comeback.
No.
But on a Friday afternoon in 2005, two female police officers was shot in Bradford.
Oh, yes, of course.
One was murdered.
Yep.
The other one thankfully survived. And I called in to see John Hemmings on the following morning, about 12, to ask him to ensure that he gave, he gave the police and the police federation all the support he could give. During that conversation, halfway through, I completely broke down in tears.
Yeah.
John sat there, totally shocked, and one of his helpers had to give me a glass of water. On that Saturday afternoon, later, I was sitting alone at home, and it wasn't until a friend of mine phoned me and we were having a conversation, and the subject come up about this police officer he murdered, that I was told that she was the mother of 5 children.
Bless you.
3 she'd given birth to, and 2 that she had adopted. And I was in a far worse state then.
Johnny, are you crying now, or is this hay fever attacking you?
No, I'll get emotional when I talk about this.
You get emotional and sneeze, yes.
No, I'm coughing.
Oh, sorry, I apologise. Sorry, I can hear the emotion in your voice, yes.
And when I was told that she was the mother of 5 children...
Yeah.
And I was sitting alone. I was in a worse state when I spoke to John Hemmings. I've never been so angry and upset about anything similar to that incident. I think it was absolutely disgraceful.
Things like that are heartbreaking. And being a dad myself, I think that because you just imagine what those little kiddies are going to go through, aren't you? And that someone's got to explain to them what's happened and why their mummy isn't there anymore. And it is. Well, John, I think that displays a great sense of empathy and a great humanity there for you to cry for someone like that.
Well, on that Saturday morning, Tony Butler used to do the Saturday morning phone-in.
Oh, yeah.
And I was the very first caller on air at 9:05.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Tony about it and how disgusted I was about it. And I asked all his listeners to contact their MP to ensure that their MP gave their full support to the police and the police federations. That's why I called in to see John Hemmings myself on that Saturday morning about 11:45.
Well, John, listen, I appreciate you sharing that story with us, and I can hear the emotion in your voice even now. And you're right, it's hard not to get choked up, isn't it, when you hear about a parent being murdered, you know, and you just think, well, how on earth is someone going to explain that to that little kiddie? John, I really appreciate your call. 08453 009956. When was the last time you cried? Here's something. Have you ever cried when a celebrity died? I remember. Have a think, because I have. I've done it. I've done it quite a few times. I'll tell you the last celebrity I cried at when they died. After this, boom, boom, boom. It needs that. That trail really annoys me. It's a cracking show, but it needs that little sting at the end. I'm going to have to write to my MP. Hello, this is Iain Lee. I'm going to. This is Iain Lee sitting in for Nick Conrad here between. Well, I've got another 12 minutes or thereabouts of the show before Tammy takes over at midday. I'm here next week. One more week. I hope that's not too tedious for you. You've been very patient and you've been very polite putting up with me. I appreciate that. Well, lots of stuff we discussed this morning. Prostitution. Tipton. We'll go back to Tipton in a little bit as well. I'm just waiting for the thumbs up to know that we can go over there. But I guess for the last 15 minutes of the show, when was the last time you cried? And have you ever cried at the death of a celebrity? I remember poo-pooing. That's a great phrase, isn't it? Poo-pooing. I remember poo-pooing the people who cried at Whitney Houston's death. Turns out producer Joe cried at Whitney Houston's death. I'm thinking, oh, Whitney Houston, for goodness sakes. But I've cried a few... I cried when George Harrison of the Beatles died. Oh, George, my favourite Beatle. I was heartbroken. I never do this. I went and stood outside Abbey Road Studios. I didn't get too close. I went and stood outside Abbey Road Studios, and there were just loads of hippies smoking dope. I know! It was incredible. I had a little cry when he died. I had a cry when Arthur Lee, from a group you've never heard of, a 60 group called Love, died. But the most recent celebrity... Oh, and I was in floods of tears. Oh, my favourite, Davy Jones of the Monkees. I love the Monkees. I'm obsessed. And the thing was, I was getting my little boy to bed, and I was singing Daydream Believer to my little boy, and I got a text through saying, oh, it's a shame about Davy Jones, isn't it? Sorry, what? And then another text. I'm still singing Daydream Believer. Oh, really sorry to hear that Davy Jones has died. Oh, dear. Oh, I was in floods of tears. Little Davy Jones. And I was crying because, A, I love the Monkees, but B, I was crying for my childhood. My childhood. He was... I grew up with him, not literally, that would have been weird. But I grew up with him, and it signified the end of my childhood, I think, to a certain extent, even though it was last year, and I was, in fact, 39 years old. Give me a call. Be honest about this. When was the last time you cried? I do well up a little bit if my boy says something really nice. Don't happen very often. But, I love you, Dada. I do well up a little bit. But then what he normally says straight after that is, can we watch an Octonauts? That's the next phrase. Can we watch an Octonauts? So be honest. And it can be sloppy if you want. I don't mind. 81333, start your text WM. Or give me a phone call. I'd like to hear your stories. 08453 009956. When was the last time you cried? And have you ever cried at the death of a celebrity? The big story today and the big story yesterday, of course, was the explosion that went off outside a mosque in Tipton. Well, our reporter Steve Herman has been in Tipton all morning. He's there now. Steve, what's the latest?
Well, latest at the moment is, well, still plenty of activity. West Midlands Police are here with, numerous police cars and police vans. I can see at least 6 or 7. There's also a couple of fire trucks. They've been unloading a massive crate off the back of a van. I'm not exactly sure what that is for, but there's been plenty of investigations, forensics here as well. I can see them on the railway bridge on the disused railway line, which is where the explosion was heard yesterday at 6 minutes past 1. We're coming up to nearly 23 hours since the event. There is still heightened security, but the one thing that has been really nice this morning has been speaking to members of the community and their reaction. They're staying calm, and they're saying it's bringing the whole community together.
This is the interesting thing, and we've heard this word dignity thrown around a lot today, Steve, but it does seem to be that the community, as opposed to rightfully getting angry and venting their spleen, they are kind of taking a step back, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's a real black country spirit, being quite laid back and, blasé is probably not the right word, because it was an explosion, a terrorist incident as it's being treated by West Midlands Police, but everyone does seem very calm, very laid back and casual about this. It's a beautiful summer's day here in Tipton. There's blue sky all above. If the police vans and the tape and all the cars weren't here, you'd think it was just a normal summer's morning.
Steve, are the police planning to speak to anybody at the moment? Have they got a press conference lined up or anything?
Well, we believe there's going to be some sort of press conference at around 1:45 here in Tipton by the Tipton Carnegie Centre, which is right in front of me. We're expecting to hear from multi-faith leaders from across the community, just again to stress that community spirit and community cohesion. The only latest line from the police is that they are still appealing for witnesses to what happened at the Central Jamia Mosque on Binfield Street. The roads in the immediate area are still closed off. They are appealing for witnesses, and I'm sure they'll be going through CCTV. As I've mentioned, they're checking through forensics, but it is being treated as a terrorist incident still at this stage. Steve Herman, live from Tipton, thank you very much indeed. Good morning, this is Iain Lee filling in for Nick, BBC WM. Hey, this is... I've been handing a sheet of paper and I'm scratching my head thinking, is this true? I'm doing the maths, it is true. 28 years since Bob Geldof unleashed his global jukebox on the world. Live Aid was 28 years ago. Do you know what? I was 12 then. I didn't really pay much attention to Live Aid because I didn't really like pop music. I didn't like modern pop music. I thought it was all a load of old nonsense. I remember kind of sitting at home and watching a bit of it, but thinking, oh, whatever. My sister was obsessed. She was there in front with the video recorder, the Betamax, recording and then pausing when like a rubbish band came on. Then when one of her bands came on, she'd record again, and badly edited version. 28 years. Thanks for making me feel really, really old. Isn't that nice? Keith Middleton will be hosting an extraordinary extravaganza to celebrate the 28th
anniversary of the landmark world event that was Live Aid. Join Keith from 10 p.m. tonight to hear the following share their memories of Live Aid. Harvey Goldsmith, Francis Rossi. Boy, oh boy, have I heard some stories about what Status Quo got up to at Live Aid. I've heard some stories that I couldn't mention them on the radio, even though I'm sure they would applaud me for doing it. Paul Weller, Janice Long, Midure, Nick Kershaw. Did he ever give us the answer to the riddle, Nick Kershaw? He was supposed to. Wasn't he supposed to do it in 2001? I'm going to sue Nick Kershaw. Howard Jones, Paul Young, and Kiki D. What were you doing when Live Aid happened? Were you there? Where did you watch it? Who was with you? And what did it mean to you? You can get in touch with Keith and listen live from 10 o'clock tonight. The main thing I remember about Live Aid is seeing the Beach Boys and thinking, oh, who are these weird, ugly, fat, beardy old men? I love the Beach Boys, but they didn't look like Beach Boys in Live Aid. And also seeing The Who, because if I remember correctly, The Who were live at Wembley, but we'd lost the live link-up, so the nation went to Philadelphia and watched The Who live from Wembley, but live from Philadelphia. And also there was a bit as well, they hadn't played together for years and they were awful, where Pete Townsend kicked the microphone stand because the sound was so bad, and he fell over, he fell on his backside. It's a brilliant bit, you just see him fall on his backside, you think, oh, Pete, what are you doing? We're asking what makes you cry. I'm going to make one of the listeners cry in a minute. I'm really going to do it. Where's that text? I'm going to make someone cry in a second. But before that, we're asking when did you last cry? Chris says, when my dog died 7 weeks ago, still crying now. People who aren't pet owners don't get it. They don't get it. I've got my cat Velvet. She's been with me for 12 years. She's 14 years old, so there ain't much time left, and she has been with me through thick and thin, through the highs and the lows, literal and metaphorical. When she dies, oh, my little girl, oh, it's going to break my heart. Chris also goes on to say he cried, I'm assuming it's a gentleman, Chris cried when George Best died. Natalie says, I always cry over things that involve animal cruelty and child cruelty, as they can't defend themselves. Sean says, OMG. I've just Googled OMG. It means, oh, my God. It's like an abbreviation. It's a short way of saying it. If you do it in capitals, it means, oh, my God. It just saves you typing that and it saves time reading it. I thought I was the only one who cries. Today they call them chick flicks. Oh, the end of Sleepless in Seattle on top of the Empire State. 27 dress when she finally realises she's in love. I've not seen the film. I probably never will. Thank you very much for that. Steve's in Leicestershire. Good morning, Steve.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm getting a little bit emotional because I've just imagined my cat dying, and that's not good. When was the last time you cried?
Well, I mean, the last time, I don't know. I can't really say that, but I was thinking Les Dawson was what moved me to tears when you talked about, when a celebrity died. I got really emotional about that.
What were you surprised to be caught by that emotion?
I was actually, yeah, because back then it wasn't quite as common as it might be now to let go, I was surprised, to be honest.
Steve, thank you very much for that. I'm going to play a little bit of a song, knowing... Well, Neil, I apologise, but Neil's going to cry now. That's for Neil. We don't really play songs this, but it's a good song, isn't it? Gilbert O'Sullivan, Alone Again Naturally. Neil is texting, I cannot sing along with the song Alone Again Naturally without crying ever, especially the verse... Oh, I'm getting all emotional. It's just because I'm tired. At 65 years old, my mother, God rest her soul, couldn't understand why the only man she'd ever loved had been taken, leaving her to start with a heart so badly broken. Despite encouragement from me, no words were ever spoken. Oh, it's sad, isn't it? Listen, it's a nice day out there, but I suggest if the heat isn't for you, lock yourself in a dark room, draw the curtains, put E.T. on, or a sad film, and just have a little weep. It feels good. You feel silly. You do feel a bit silly, but it's nice. Let it all out. It's cathartic. Another celebrity. Do you remember Frank Sidebottom, the guy with the papier-mâché head? Oh, because I used to love Frank and Chris Seavey, who played him, and I kind of became friends with him towards the end. Oh, and then he died. Well, on that joyous note... The wasn't quite the laugh riot we were expecting, was it? No, but it was a lot of fun. This has been Iain Lee, sitting in for Nick Conrad. I'm back one more week. You have to endure one more week, so hopefully you'll join me next week. Coming up after the news, do stay tuned. Tammy Gooding is going to be on. But from me, till next week, ta-ta.